afternoon. I'd like to call this meeting of the Southampton Town Board to order on this 11th day of January, 2022. Please rise if you're able and join me for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance
to the flag
of the United
States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Let's remain standing and join together for a brief moment of silence as we keep in our thoughts and prayers all the brave men and women of our armed services who bravely defend our freedoms at home and around the world each day. Let's pause with them in our hearts. Thank you. Please be seated. Madam Clerk, would you please call the roll?
Certainly. Supervisor Schneiderman.
Present.
Councilwoman McNamara. Present. Councilman Martell.
Here.
Councilman Bouvier.
Here.
Councilman Scavone.
Present.
All right, thank you. All right, why don't we start with the minutes? I'll make a motion to approve actually, you know what? We got Ryan here too. So why don't we hold off for a second? Let's go to Ryan. And it says my internet connection is unstable. Hopefully you guys are able to hear me. Let's go to Ryan. We'll get a brief COVID update.
Sure. Thanks, Supervisor. So the daily average cases between January 2nd and January 8th, that's the 8th is the most current data as of just a little while ago that was available from the Suffolk County Department of Health's system. The average is 243 new positives per day for the town of Southampton. Obviously, this number does not necessarily reflect at-home cases, so it's our suspicion that the number may actually be more like 350 or even 400 cases a day, based on just anecdotally what we're seeing throughout the town and even within our own staffing as far as the number of positive individuals that are kind of being reported to us on a daily basis. That said, probably the one good piece of news that I can share is that the Red Creek Park testing site yesterday only saw a demand for approximately 260 tests out of the 500 available for the day. The previous week, which was the Monday following the New Year's Day weekend and the New Year's Eve weekend, they did 560 some odd tests, I believe, that day. There was supposed to be 500 available. They actually brought some more with them, and they ended up doing 560 tests. And anybody that lives in the area knows that there was a line all the way down past Village Auto that morning. There was a huge demand for testing that day. And so to see that kind of fall off from last week to this week, where we were literally seeing about half the number of people show up to get tested on Monday, I'm going to take that as a good sign. Whether that's a good sign that more people have been able to get their hands on at-home testing kits because of some of the efforts to distribute them through, schools and community groups and things of that nature that have been occurring, and a mechanism that's now in place via the county website to be able to report results of at-home testing kits. So maybe it's causing a little bit less of a demand on the institutions out there that offer testing, or whether it's whether we're going to start to see a little bit of a fall off in the numbers soon, as have been predicted. I'm not 100% sure on that yet. Obviously we'll have to wait and see if we start to see the numbers drop back down. We haven't seen any indicators of it yet, although, the medical kind of forecasts on this are that by the end of this month, hopefully we'll start to see a drop off based on the spread rate. Obviously, with 250 known individuals, but possibly more like 300 or 400 becoming testing positive on a daily basis in a town our size, that should saturate the population, pretty quickly. And hopefully the virus just doesn't have a place to go sooner than later. And we start to see that drop off pretty rapidly as time goes on. We've also reached out some concerns that we had with regards to, hospital beds. Supervisor, you and I have had these conversations just, with the number of COVID positives, continuing to increase countywide, not just within our jurisdiction. There's just been this concern that a portion of those people are ending up in hospitals. And as the number of positives goes up, we're proportionally seeing, the number of people that are in a hospital increase. And, our hospital happens to be a relatively small hospital. They do amazing things and have been absolute heroes throughout this pandemic to us, especially with the size that they are. But the concern was out there that, are we soaking up too many hospital beds with, COVID patients? So we do have regular communications with Southampton Hospital, and we've also reached out to our partners at the Nassau Suffolk Hospital Council, to get a more regional perspective on this. And the bigger concerns are about staffing, not so much beds. Most of our hospitals at this point in time, throughout the county are not, in surge mode where they've increased their number of beds to meet the surge demand yet, or they haven't had to do so. And most of them are very good, including our hospital here, at increasing their surge capacity. I think many of us will remember back to the early days of the pandemic when the state required all hospitals to actually be able to handle a 100% increase on what their normal daily capacities were. And Southampton Hospital rose to that challenge as well. So did, PBMC up to the north of us. So they do have the capability to increase their bed capacities. The problem is, having the staff to visit those beds and to attend to the patients in those beds. And they're dealing with the same things that all of us are dealing. Certainly as a municipality, we have a nice chunk of our workforce that on a daily basis is out with COVID. All of our partner municipalities, including the county, are experiencing the same thing. We had these conversations recently related to, snow plowing capabilities and the fact that county DPW and state DOT were all experiencing some shortages the same way we were. Generally, we have a decent chunk of staff that's out on a daily basis as a result of COVID sickness. And, hospitals are no different in that, their workforce is also becoming sick. So they have to deal with the issue of COVID and the heightened number of people that are presenting themselves on a daily basis due to COVID related symptoms. And then coupled with that, they then have to deal with, nurses and doctors that themselves are getting sick with the virus. So it's a challenge. But we're happy to report that what we've been told is that the challenge is not having the beds, it's more just it's having the staff. And so hopefully with the 5-day return for asymptomatic individuals or those that have been vaccinated and boosted and have improving symptoms in line with the current guidance, gets people back to work a little bit sooner so that we have the staff capable of doing that. And hopefully we also see a drop off in the viral spread very soon that helps us mitigate those problems as well. But that's kind of where we're at in terms of the big picture right now.
All right, does anybody have any questions for Ryan? Thank you, Ryan. All right. Then, I'm sorry, Tommy John, did you have a question?
I do. I was muted there for a moment. Ryan, is there any data on on how long it's taking for people to overcome the Omicron variant as opposed to other variants?
So yes, there's definitely data out there, and that data is what was the driving factor for the reduction in isolation time by the CDC. In the recent changes that many of us may have seen or heard of. We've adopted those changes here at the town for our workforce as well, in line with the recommendations from the state and the county. They are also following those changes. The Omicron variant, which is the dominant variant right now, but we also need to, before I go too far down that line, I want to throw the little caveat out there that it's not the only variant out there.
Right.
All right. Just because it makes up, 50 some odd percent or 60% of the cases that are being seen, that still means that, 40% or 30 some odd percent of the cases that are out there are still other variants like Delta, which we know to be a bit more of a severe strain of COVID that can have much more devastating impacts. So when we talk about this and say that the recovery time is faster, or that the symptoms are a little, less severe, and we look at the positive sides of that, we want to make sure that we don't put people into a false sense of security in thinking that this is something that they can just, go about their business and not even worry about or not even think about. First of all, if you're unvaccinated or you've got pre-existing conditions, or you fall into a vulnerable population like those over 65, the Omicron variant can still be quite devastating to individuals that fall into those categories. The other thing to remember is that although it's the dominant variant, it doesn't mean you're going to get Omicron. You could still end up with the Delta variant of COVID. You could still end up with a much more severe strain of COVID that could really, truly be devastating. We've seen what those impacts can be. So when we talk about it, although, we all want to see the light at the end of this tunnel, and we want to try and look on the bright side a little bit, because it's been 2 years of COVID almost at this point. We still want to make sure that we deliver that message in a way that enforces that we want people to act in a way that's safe and prudent when they're going about their business, so that they can avoid the spread and not suffer any of these severe impacts of COVID.
Right. And when an individual gets tested, they're not necessarily being tested for a variant. They're just being tested for COVID-19. So that we're probably doing a random sample of some folks at some point. All right. Thank you.
You got it.
Any other COVID questions? Ryan? Oh, I just, have a question. I don't know, Ryan, if you know the answer. Did the governor extend the waiver of the open meetings law to allow us to keep meeting by Zoom past the 15th?
Off the top of my head, I'd have to check.
Yeah.
Jim, did you hear anything?
I'm not sure. I don't recall hearing anything, but I'm sure they will.
I'll double check.
I'm sure they will. Particularly, this governor seems to be inclined toward allowing Zoom. So let's just double check.
Yeah,
Jim, weren't they trying to put legislation in effect to extend that out for the state legislature, even beyond just like the emergency orders, the capability?
Yeah, I believe so.
So I would think that would be a pretty strong indicator that she'll probably extend it for all of the rest of us.
Yeah.
Yes. All right. So yeah, we can circle back on that. Ryan, thank you
Sure.
for the update. All right. So let's go back to the agenda. Let me make a motion to approve the minutes from the regular town board meeting of December 28th, 2021. Do I have a second?
Second.
Seconded by Councilman Bouvier. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Approved. And now a motion to approve the minutes from the organizational meeting of January 5th, 2022.
Second.
Seconded by Councilman Schiavone. All in favor?
Aye.
Approved. All right. Let's add a couple of resolutions to the packet. You've got a walk-on packet. It's got 4 resolutions. Number 39276 is the first warrant of the year. 39271 terminates an employee in public safety. 39185 terminates an employee in land management. And the last one offered by Councilman Martell, 39287. It's a notice of public hearing to consider amending Town Code Chapter 312 V&T Art 8 to enact, Article 8 to enact no stopping regulations on a portion of Summerfield Lane in Watermill. Resolutions on this does require these for majority vote, so we'll need 4 out of 5. All in favor? Oh, did I get a second? I'm sorry, a second to walk them on? Second by
Second.
Councilman Martell, okay. Second by Councilman Martell, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
All right, so that's unanimous. So those will be taken up at the end and they'll be part of our agenda. All right. So next, we will go to communications. I'll ask our clerk, Cindy Schermeyer, to read the communications.
The following communications have been received in the office of the town clerk. We have received public notices from the New York State Department of Public Service, notification of winter assistance virtual workshops for January 27th. Village of Sag Harbor, year-end community preservation fund status reports, sewer master plan, and a sewer shed K engineering plan for 2021. Village of Southampton, year-end community preservation fund status report, Lake Agawam permeable reactive barrier. Letters, emails, and land use applications have been received regarding the following: change of zone, NRP Group LLC Quiog, landmark designation of Lafayette, 8 Studio Lane, Shinnecock Hills, Marijuana Regulation and Taxation Act, Planning Board matter of Verizon Wireless Tree Monopole, Sag Harbor, Planning Board applications for Guy Regler, Castle Hill Subdivision, North Sea, and Sarabi Family Trust, Great Hill Road in North Sea as well. That concludes the communications for this meeting's agenda.
All right, thank you, Cindy. All right, we're going to move on to public hearings. We have, I think, 7. We have 7 public hearings today. And each public hearing, if you wish to be heard on that public hearing, you'll need to let us know. If you're watching this Zoom meeting and you'd like to participate, there's a icon on the bottom of your screen that shows a raised hand, Just click on that and we'll know you're looking to be heard at this public hearing. People get confused sometimes that they're here to speak in public portion or on a different public hearing. So the only speakers we entertain are those for that particular public hearing. So, all right, we're going to start with the first public hearing, and I'll ask the clerk to read the public hearing notice.
Public hearing number 1 on the acquisition of land of Brocard Development, Inc. and to amend the CPF management and stewardship plan to include property.
All right, and I'm going to ask our CPF program manager, Lisa Combrin, to introduce.
Good afternoon, Mr. Supervisor and members of the board, Madam Clerk and Town Attorney. The first public hearing is on the potential acquisition of Brocard Development, Inc. I'm going to share my screen to give you an aerial showing the subject property and also the other preserved properties and other town-owned properties in the vicinity. Okay, can everyone see? Oh, give me one second. Okay, can everyone see that?
Yes.
Terrific. Okay, great. The property is located at 120 Great Hill Road in North Sea, Suffolk County, tax map number 978.1 to 5.4. The property is included in our CPF project plan in the Great Hill target area. It's zoned CR 200, and this particular property is 4.27 acres. It's located in the South Fork SGPA and also in the Aquifer Protection Overlay District. As you can see from the aerial, it is adjacent to the North Sea landfill and transfer station, and it is also adjacent to several other reserved properties. Some are owned by the town of Southampton and some are owned by Suffolk County. There are trails on this property, and this would be This was recommended for acquisition by the CPF Advisory Board for a number of reasons, including because of its importance for the preservation of woodlands in the Great Hill area and also as a buffer for existing and additional trails in the vicinity. The purchase price for this property is $700,000.
Lisa, just a couple quick questions. In determining the value of this property, was there any setbacks from, I don't know, from planning board or any kind of deeded easements or restrictions along the border with our closed landfill?
No, not that I'm aware of, when the valuation was determined. But the property was, of course, valued for its proximity to the landfill and the impact on value that that proximity would have.
Okay. All right. I know sometimes when you're close to a capped landfill, there may be concerns about methane or other, vented gases, things like that. But I would think that would devalue the property some, but perhaps it did.
Well,
There's only, the yield on this is just one house, right?
Correct.
All right. Any other questions? All right, we'll go to the public. Again, if you wish to be heard on this, the possible acquisition of the Brocard development property over there in North Sea, that's the only thing that we're entertaining comment on at this juncture. So, and we'll give you 3 minutes to make your comments known, but you do have to raise your hand if you want to be heard at this public hearing. Charles, is there anyone indicating they wish to be heard?
I see no hands, sir.
All right, so what I'd like to do, because this is a Zoom meeting, to close the hearing, but leave the written record open for 2 weeks, so that if somebody was not able to attend today, they could still comment before we vote on acquiring the property. Is that okay? So I'll make that motion.
Second.
Seconded by Councilman Martell. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye, okay, that was unanimous. All right, we're going to move on to the second public hearing. Madam
Public
Clerk?
hearing number 2 on the acquisition of land of James M. Manosoff and amend the CPF management stewardship plan to include the property.
All right, thank you. And Lisa Combrink, our CPF program manager, again, will introduce us.
Thank you, Mr. Supervisor. This property is located at 24 West Shore Drive in North Sea. I'm going to share my screen and let you all see the location of this property. All right, I think there you can see the subject parcel. It's owned by James Manosoff, located at Suffolk County Tax Map number 932-132. It is contained and identified in the CPF project plan in the wetlands target area. Property is zoned R40. This parcel is 0.48 acres. And as you can see from the other from the areas in green on the aerial, these are other protected properties immediately adjacent to this parcel. This particular parcel was recommended for acquisition by the CPF Advisory Board because it does contain reedgrass marsh and also because of its proximity to the other protected parcels. The purchase price for this property is $250,000.
And this is up in North Sea. Is it a developable lot? I guess it must be.
It is, but it does have constraints because of the wetlands.
Okay. Any other questions for Ms. Combrink? Okay, so we'll go to the public. Once again, only on this public hearing, which is the possible acquisition of the land of James Manusoff. If you wish to be heard on this and this alone, please click the raise hand icon.
There are no hands.
All right, so similarly, I'd like to close the public hearing, but leave the record open for 2 weeks for written comment. I'll make that
Second.
motion, seconded by Councilman Schiavone. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Okay, that hearing is closed. We'll move on to the third public hearing. Madam Clerk, would you read the notice?
Hearing number 3 on the acquisition of lands of Irene Mahoney, Trotman, Linda Mahoney, and William Mahoney, and to amend the CPF management stewardship plan to include the properties.
All right, thank you. And again, Ms. Combrink, would you introduce us?
Thank you, Mr. Supervisor. The third public hearing for today concerns properties at 1517 and 19 Cedar Lane in North Sea. I'm going to share the screen and bring up those properties. Okay, so you'll see outlined in yellow the three flag lots. Those are owned by members of the Mahoney family, identified as Suffolk County Tax Map numbers 995 to 17.7, 17.8, and 17.9. All three properties are identified in the CPF project plan in the North Sea Atlantic White Cedar Swamp target area. They're zoned R20, and the three properties together consist of 2.04 acres. Two of the lots, 17.8 and 17.9, are adjacent to other town-owned preserved open space. The parcel that is immediately adjacent to those two is 8.4 acres. And that parcel is adjacent to another town preserve of 9.9 acres. So that will be adding on to our existing holdings in the White Cedar Swamp target area. The purchase price for these three properties together is $1.3 million.
Okay, and these are three developable lots here, right?
Correct.
1.3, so about 430 average per, something like that. All right. Okay, I don't have any questions about this one. Anybody have any questions for Ms. Combrink? All right, let's go to the public. Is there anyone who wishes to be heard on this public hearing? This is the public hearing of the Mahoney properties.
No hands.
This is up in North Sea. No hands. Okay, I'll make the same motion to close the public hearing, but leave the record open for 2 weeks.
Second.
Seconded by Councilman Bouvier. All in favor?
Aye.
Approved. All right, we'll move on to the fourth public hearing. Madam Clerk?
Public hearing number 4 on the acquisition of lands of the Susan E. Shemega Credit Shelter Trust for water quality improvement purposes.
All right, thank you, Sunday. All right, Lisa, would you introduce this?
Sure, thank you, Mr. Supervisor. The last public hearing that I have today are for three properties located at 448 and 500 Flanders Road in Riverside. These are owned by the trustees of the Susan E. Shemeda Credit Shelter Trust. Suffolk County Tax Map numbers 900, 119-1-25, 119-1-26.1, and 118.1-1-32. So you can see the outline of the properties in yellow on the aerial. These properties are identified in the CPF project plan within the Conic
sharing.
River target area.
You're not
And-
sharing at the
So
moment.
you're not, we're not seeing your shared screen.
Oh, you're not? Okay, let me try again. Sorry. Give me a minute. Oh, okay, hold on, please. Sorry. I think I lost my connection somehow, my video connection.
We see you.
You do? Okay. But it's not letting me share my screen now. Sorry. Let me try one more time to share the screen. Okay. All right, let me try one more time. Not sure what happened. I had it all set up. Give me 1 minute. Okay, I think I got it now. I hope. Sorry for the technical difficulties.
Okay.
I'm just gonna, can I give you the,
Yeah, why don't you want me to try to share?
sure, I don't know what happened here. I've got a new laptop and it's giving me a problem here.
Yeah, we
Let's see if
lost
this
you now.
works.
Okay, I'm back, but it's not
Can
letting
you,
me.
can you guys see my screen?
Yeah,
Yes.
So Lisa, which, is it this piece here? The John Shemeda piece, is that,
There's 3 Shemeda
and
pieces.
maybe this? There's, all right, so which, is it 32 is one of them?
32 is one of them. The other one is 25 and the other one is 26.1.
No, that's it. All right, so this is,
Okay, I'm sorry. Oh, yeah. Okay.
Yeah, That's
Is
it.
it-
That's it. That's the 26.1. That's one of them.
this is 26.1, so
Right,
that's one of them.
26.1.
And whoop, sorry about that. And then 20, where's the last piece? Is it this little one here or this big one here?
32 and 25.
32, right, 32 and 25.
All right, that's 31. We already own that one. This is 25, right? This is 32 rather. That's 32. So that's one of them. This big one is another one. And where's the third one?
Third one is a little triangle piece attached to the big one.
We already own that one. What's the name it's under?
Okay, they're all under John Shemeda. It
Not Helen
looks
Pollock?
like, no, that's a little south of it. It's 1750.
I found
You found them?
two
Okay.
of the pieces. Two of the
Okay.
pieces, not the third.
All right, let me just make sure we have the right tax map numbers. The biggest one, just going on my GIS, The biggest one is 119-1-26.1.
That's
Looks like
this
these
one.
have the wrong, yeah, okay.
Then
And
you have
then,
the one
right, and then
adjacent.
the one adjacent is 118.1-1-32.
Oh, that's the 32? That's okay.
Yeah. Mhm.
So you're just looking for the lot 25.
Okay, lot
119,
25 is a little, lot 25 is a little tiny one right on Flanders Road.
Oh, let me zoom in.
Small triangular one.
Yeah.
Right next to the residential, to the right, to the east.
Is this one here?
I think so.
Yeah, probably.
Yep, there it is.
Yeah, okay.
All right.
So
So, all right, I'm gonna stop sharing. So we all have an idea of, or just following my cursor, it's this piece, this big piece here, zoom out a little bit, and finally this triangular piece. Everybody saw that?
Yes.
One,
it.
two,
Yeah.
one. All right.
Okay, I apologize for the technical difficulties. So the total acreage on these pieces, 3 taken together in the R80 zone, is 40.6 acres. These are a water quality acquisition, and these would be used in conjunction with the proposed Riverside redevelopment of the sewage treatment plant. And Janice Shearer is here and said that she would be willing to also add some information regarding this. But this is a very critical acquisition for the redevelopment of Riverside. And the purchase price for the 3 parcels together is 1.7 million.
All right, Janice, do you want to add anything to that?
Good afternoon, Supervisor, members of the board, and welcome, Councilperson McNamara. Nice to have you here. Yes, this is critical. We're so happy we're finally at this point. We not only would this acquisition be amazing just in general for the Peconic Estuary, but it would allow us to have an outfall to allow for constructed wetlands. We're still in the process of vetting the best solution with the Environmental Facilities Corporation, which is a state lending arm, but they also have technical experts who did a whole value engineering process on our STP plan. And we're addressing all their comments right now, but without this important acquisition, it's not even an option. So it's really important, and we're really happy that we're at this point now. And so if there's anything other technical questions you want to ask me, I'm happy to answer them. But just in terms of fully supporting, for the most part, it's going to be open space, natural wetlands. And if we can put the outfall pipe there and do a constructed wetland, we would only be enhancing those wetlands where there's the dredge spoil now. So
Yeah, and just to clear up any misconceptions. So yeah, we wouldn't be, no one's talking about building a sewage treatment facility on this property. That would
no, it's across the street in the industrial park, in the industrial
so
zone.
after the water is treated and the nitrogen removed, instead of discharging it into the bay like they do in Riverhead at the sewage treatment, it would be used basically to water an area, allow it to recharge naturally, and allow wetlands, plants, and things like that to further process it. But that's about it, right? It would just
That's it.
pretty
It's
much
tertiary
verbatim
treated
water.
effluent. So it's been processed. It's not, it doesn't smell. It's basically clean water. And then the idea would be the wetland plants give it that further last polishing effect before it's recharged. So like a bioswale.
Mhm. All right.
Yeah.
Any questions about that?
You pointed out that there was a lot of dredge spoils there, and having the constructive wetlands in this property is basically, it's a filtration agent, but it's also helping reconstruct that. So without it, it'll go back to what we have there now. So I think it's an important acquisition. Thank you, Janice.
Thank you.
Janice, this is one of the many parcels on the Southampton side that actually received dredge spoil from years ago from the Peconic River. Right, one of them is the Suffolk County Park that we're working on. And for some reason, years ago, we got the dredge spoil. Okay, enough said there.
Yes, I mean, if you look at old aerials, you'll actually see big barges parked along here. Back in the day, there was large barge parking and they would come downtown Riverhead. It was almost port-like. And so when they dredged that navigable water, they placed it on these parcels. And that's just a remnant of past practice, but currently they would not be able to put dredge material in these locations anymore.
You raise a whole different set of questions. So I don't know, the next time they come in to dredge the Peconic River, how they're going to deal with the dredge spoils, but.
Well, if you did, worst case scenario, if you end up being able to recharge the STP where it's actually going and not have an outfall, and you do purchase this with water quality money, you still have that as also an option to at least, receive the dredge material that dewaters and then dispose of it elsewhere. But that's a water quality type of use, which would also be consistent with this acquisition. But that's not what we're proposing. That's just an aside random thought.
Right, assuming that the dredging is for environmental purposes rather than navigation.
That's right. That's right.
All right, any other questions here? All right, can we go to the public then? This is on the Shemeda parcels, the 3 parcels up in Riverside. Is there anyone who wishes to be heard? This public hearing?
I see no hands.
All right, so this is a water quality acquisition. Just want to make that clear. That's from the 20% of the funds. All right, I'll make a motion to close the public hearing. I'll leave the record open for 2 weeks for written comment.
Second.
Seconded by Councilman Bouvier. All in favor?
Aye.
Thank you very much.
All right.
Thank you, Jen.
Thank you, Lisa. We're going to move on to the
Thank
5th
you.
public hearing notice. Madam Clerk, would you please read it?
Public hearing number 5, to consider amending Article 5 of Chapter 298 of the Town Code to raise the income eligibility for senior citizens with limited income for real property tax exemptions.
All right. And Charles, would you let Lisa Gore, our,
Oh, she's coming in.
all right, excellent, our sole assessor has joined us. So I guess, Lisa, if you could introduce this, and I think Councilman Schiavone also introduced the resolution if he wants to say an opening word as well. But Lisa?
Sure, certainly. Good afternoon, Town Council. Congratulations to Councilman Schiavone on your re-election, and congratulations to Councilwoman McNamara.
Me too.
So,
Don't forget me.
oh yes, Sunday, congratulations as well.
And our
I'm
supervisor,
sorry.
as well.
Well, congratulations, everyone, on making it to another year. Unfortunately,
Yes.
we're still in the
Thank you.
same situation, but all right. So anyway, actually, this piece of the legislation for this, for the senior citizen and income disability limits, it's actually just to update the town code. We actually are using the highest income limits currently. What happened was we were receiving a couple of calls and notifications from people about the income limits being incorrect in the town code. That was brought to my attention. So I reached out to the town attorney's office when I was not able to find the resolution where we had actually adopted this in 2009. So this is actually to just update the town code so that we can, so that we are officially adopting the use of the income limits.
coincide with the real property tax law, Lisa?
Coincide with what the state actually enacted back in 2009. Yes.
Thank you.
And this is the highest exemption that the town.
This is the highest. Yes, this is the maximum that they can receive. Correct.
Yeah, I've gotten some comments that we should be giving a greater tax relief, property tax relief for these people who are living at basically, in some cases, poverty level wages, particularly in our area. But it's not up to us. That's the issue. It's the state has set these numbers.
That's correct.
Right. Right. I know back in 2006, Assemblyman Thiel and former Senator Laval had actually tried to put forth some legislation to actually give an additional exemption to senior citizens when we actually went to 100% full valuation. I don't think that legislation went very far. But, you know, I know we have attempted several times to, you know, try to address the issue to grant more of an exemption to our senior citizens and disabled persons.
Yeah.
Okay.
Do you think there'd be a change or a modification concerning the area of the state, you know, maybe based on
Right.
the state like they do with other things? So.
Right. And I just wanted to mention also, this is very important for our senior citizens and disabled too. Back on December 26th, Governor Hochul actually signed an executive order so that our seniors and disabled persons do not have to renew their senior exemptions and their disability exemptions for this year. So I just want to make sure that you know, the town board actually puts forth a resolution in order for the town, for us to do that, because right now we still have to accept those applications. So until we have the resolution, you know, we really can't tell, you know, our residents that they don't have to do it this year. So I just want to make sure that that gets done, because we certainly don't want them.
Applications be due?
March 1st.
Okay.
March 1st. We actually sent out the renewal notices back in November. We try to get an early start on them, so we give people as much time as possible. But being that, you know, this executive order was signed, you know, any amount of time would make a great difference, so they don't have to come in.
Okay.
So essentially, we waive the provisions of our town law, Lisa, section.
Yes, for the renewals. Yes.
And reflecting back to 467.
Yes, we actually did a resolution back in December of 2020 for the same thing. So, you know, we could just copy that same resolution and put it forth. That would be great.
Perfect. Thank you.
Yep.
Let's do it.
Lisa, how does that work with, if you have new applicants, they still have to,
For new applicants, yes, for new applicants, they still have to apply for the exemptions by March 1st. This is only just for the senior citizens and disabled persons who have to renew each year by sending us their, you know, updated income information.
Great, thank you.
So if they had the exemption in 2021, they will be granted the exemption again in 2022. However, if we find that their income actually entitles them to more of an exemption, then we'll certainly give them the higher exemption benefit.
Okay, thank you.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
Lisa, is this only the enhanced star, the regular star?
No, this is for the aged exemption, for the senior citizen exemption. Not the enhanced exemption is part of the senior citizen, but for right now, it's just the senior citizen exemption that doesn't have to be renewed. Actually, the state oversees the star enhanced. So the state verifies their income with the Department of Tax and Finance, so that we don't have to worry about.
Okay, so for this program, what do you need to qualify?
You need an income limit of no more than $37,400. And that's the same for the disability exemption as well.
And you have to be
65 years or older. and you have to renew the exemption each year. But because of the executive order, that will be waived for this year like it was last year.
Okay.
So related to that, if someone moves out of the area for whatever reason that was previously granted this exemption, how do we know that that's happened?
Well, sometimes people will call us and let us know that they have moved so that they can transfer their exemption to their new residence. Otherwise, if we're not notified, if they've sold their house here in Southampton town, then we become aware by a deed, and then we'll remove the exemption. But most of the times, the people will call us and say, look, I just want to transfer my exemption. So, and then we'll remove it that way.
So I'm only making the point that anyone who does move or change it, they have somewhat of an obligation to let you know, or that happens automatically. I think it's more of the latter, if I'm correct.
Yeah, well, yeah, it's better if they let us know, because in some cases what'll happen is if we come about it by a deed because they've sold the property, what'll happen is that new owner will get hit with what's called a pro rata, because now they're going to benefit from part of the previous owner's exemption. They're not really entitled to that. So we're going to actually recoup that money back the following year. So it is better if they let us know, because a lot of times the new people will say, hey, well, I didn't even know there was an exemption on the property. So.
Okay, great. Thank you.
Mhm.
Municipality gets notified of the transaction, Councilman Bouvier, from the real property transfer forms that you sign at closing. Will eventually get to the county and the town and the villages, whatever municipalities are involved, to notify the municipalities that this transaction has taken place. We get notification of the price of the transaction as well as the change of ownership. So
right.
Takes many months though, sometimes.
it can, it's particularly now.
Yeah, it's probably maybe a 2 to 3 month lag.
All right, let's go to the public on this one. We haven't heard from the public yet. This is only on this hearing where we're modifying the income thresholds for qualification to match the state law for the senior exemption. Is there anyone who wishes to be heard on this public hearing number 5?
No hands.
All right. I don't know that we need to leave the written record open on this one. So I'll just make a motion to close the public hearing.
Second.
Seconded by Councilman Schiavone. All in favor?
Aye.
Okay. Thank you, Lisa.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Happy New Year.
Madam Clerk, would you read the 6th public hearing notice?
Public hearing number 6, to consider historic landmark designation of the property located at 248 New Light Lane, Watermill, Suffolk County Tax Map number 900-103-2-25, AKA the Corwith Jones Farmhouse.
All right, and our planning director, David Wilcox, will introduce this. Before you do, we're also joined by Ed Wisnowski, who is the head of our landmarks committee, and J.K. Flack is also joining us as well. So David, I'm going to turn it over to you.
But I'm going to turn it right over to Ed. He's prepared a presentation, and there's no reason for me to be repeating what he's saying. So Ed.
Good afternoon, members of the Town Council and Town Clerk Jeremiah. I'm going to share my screen with respect to the property that we're recommending designation for. And let me know if you see it.
Yes.
Okay. This is 248 New Light Lane, officially in the hamlet of Watermill, but in the area well known as Hayground. The owners, Kirk and Jan Flack, had petitioned for designation as a historic site. This has been a work in progress for about 8 or 9 months as they sought to determine the desirability of it and the financial aspects of it in terms of the marketing of the house down the road. They are residents of the Washington, D.C. area and a Virginia suburb, I believe. So if I can move my page here, let me see if I can get the this is the neighborhood that the site is in. This is on the borderline of the Watermill and Bridgehampton Hamlet. Kellis Pond, it lies south of Montauk Highway in what was once very rich farming area. The original farm extended much larger than what you see as the orange site, including and extending much further south down the highway of New Light Lane. This is the current neighborhood. The White House is the subject property. As you can see, the neighborhood has become developed as the farmland has disappeared in recent years. There is obviously construction. This is a 2018 aerial. So this house is, the large house behind it is basically finished. But it is certainly a neighborhood that has changed dramatically in recent years. The house has many interior details that are, if I can get this centered, has many interior details that are reflective of the Greek Revival house that we see. This is interior elements of it. The Landmarks Board generally is not particular about the interior aspects of a structure, more to the exterior aspects of a structure. The exterior features of this house, I should have spent some time explaining a little bit from the first picture, but these are little details of the Greek Revival portion of the house that existed. This portion of the house was built in the early 1800s, adjoining an earlier structure, a vernacular farmhouse structure that predates the 1800s. The house was owned by, originally the farm and the house site was owned by the Corwith family. Most notable about the Corwith family that occupied the site was that eventually they would move a windmill to what we call the Watermill Commons. The windmill that's there was moved there about 1813, and the Corwith family and descendants operated the mill up until the 1880s, and then the mill was sold into private hands. But the Corwith mill still stands and still is representative of an early agrarian and somewhat industrial character for the period. The Corwith family descendants who operated that mill till the 1880s or so eventually abandoned agriculture and opened a pharmacy on Southampton Main Street, a village Main Street, at the corner of Jobs Lane. And this pharmacy was in operation for 138 years, eventually disappearing in the year 2012 from basically competition that stemmed from supermarket and other environments which provided pharmacy supplies and services. The Corwith family, after they sold off the farm site and the farmland, was continued in farming operation by Haynes, members of the Haynes family and members of the Marin family. And eventually the land and farm passed to Arthur Jones, who was a New York-based real estate investor and operator. And he kind of ran it as a country gentleman's farm, so to speak, for a long period of time in the 20th century. This is about a 1910 period picture of the house, which has and would have shown some changes from its current condition, as farmhouses were wont to do over a period of time. Arthur Jones, the Arthur Jones era, basically was quite unusual in the sense that he developed a pig farm there, and in local tradition began to earn a sobriquet, which was that of being Pig Jones, in terms of his neighbors' reference to him. I will say that farm life on the East End often had nicknames for some of the farmers. Across the road from the Arthur Jones farm was the farm of George Hand, who rented land from Arthur Jones for farming, but he also had the sobriquet of being called Soup Hand, and it seems to be something of a tradition for the hayground farmers. After Arthur Jones died, the land was bought by Kate Feebleman. I don't have a picture of her and don't have more reference to her except what is here in her obituary. But I know she was a significant person in the life of the Hayground, Mecox, and Bridgehampton community, involved with historical preservation and activity. She was also involved with some of the local farmers, including the Ludlow farm in Mecox as well. Just going back to this original picture, I should have pointed out that this one-story portion is of a different era from the early 1800s classical Greek revival style that you see here. As we look to landmark it, we find that it met three of the designation criteria in the town code of possessing historic value based upon the long history of the farm site and the early date of the elements of the house. And it has a value for the economic history of the locality because of its almost 300 years of agricultural use in Southampton town through the many owners that occupied it. There are elements to the Corwith family are somewhat historic in terms of the community. Caleb Corwith was a Minuteman who fought in the Battle of Brooklyn, a watershed event in the history of Long Island and Southampton town. His son, James Corwith, became operator of the iconic Corwith windmill and watermill for a long period of time. And James's nephew, I believe, Caleb Howell Corwith, was founder of the 138-year running Corwith Pharmacy in Southampton Village. And the third element of the criteria that's there is that it embodies architectural styles and design representative of various periods. The one-story vernacular farmhouse volume and the mid-19th century Greek Revival two-story front gabled volume that was added to it. Just a reminder that landmark designation doesn't cost the town anything, but that there are benefits from designated properties that owners now and in the future might claim. There is a tax abatement provision in New York State real property tax law that allows a 5-year partial exemption for work that is an alteration and a rehabilitation of a designated property that increases its assessed valuation. And their proportion is a declining proportion over the 5-year period. We have in Southampton Town the opportunity to provide landmark maintenance grants for qualifying properties if the owner wishes to apply. There are criteria that are involved in that. There's also the possibility of having an opportunity, if the house is significant enough, to have historic preservation easement acquired by the town through the Community Preservation Fund, and there have been several of those that have occurred in Southampton Town over the past 5 years or so. And there is also some zoning code relief possibilities for designated property, a carriage house privilege, which allows for an additional residential element on a property without purchasing of a development right, and also the possibility that the ZBA might provide for special use permits where there's an intent to preserve, protect, restore, or promote the historical cultural integrity of the buildings. So that's my story and the Landmarks Board story for this house. And if there are any questions, I can add to it, and certainly the applicant and owner, I believe, are on the call, so they may wish to have something to say.
All right, thank you, Ed. That was very thorough, not surprising. So thank you for that. Does anybody have any questions for Mr. Woznovsky concerning his presentation, that this should be landmarked?
Thank you for the presentation. Very informative.
Yes.
Pig Jones, I love it. My uncle had a dairy farm in Sag Harbor. People called him Moo Cow. True story.
A history lesson today. Any other questions for Ed?
No, just thank you, Ed. Comprehensive as always, much appreciated, and I fully support this. So thank you.
I should mention, I don't think there's a resolution on the agenda for today for the designation. That will be at a future meeting. So just to make you aware of that situation.
Yep.
And the other thing, I'm sorry, Councilman Bouvier, but I could not find a French connection for this.
I'm sure there is one.
All right, so let's go to the public, unless Yeah, I guess there's no other questions. So let's go to the public. Is there, I think we just lost Mr. Flack, right? Kirk was, oh, there it is. He's still on there. Okay. So let's go to the public. Is there anyone who wishes to be heard? If so, please use the raise hand icon. Again, we're only entertaining comments pertaining to this public hearing on the landmark designation of the property at 248 New Light Lane in Watermill, the Corwith Jones farmhouse. And I saw Mr. Flack raise the hand. So Kirk, if we'll just unmute yourself and we'll allow you to make your comments. Still muted, Kirk.
Muted.
Kirk, you need to unmute. So if you'll see in your bottom left of your screen something that looks like a microphone, and just click that.
He's good. He should be good now.
You should be good now.
Well, thanks for your patience. Jan and I just wanted to thank Chairperson Wisnowski and the Landmarks Board and this board for the attention that you've shown to the recommendation or the nomination. And certainly Ed and his members were enormously helpful throughout the process. So we're much obliged.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Flack. All right, is there anyone else from the public who wishes to be heard?
No other hands, sir.
I don't know if we need to leave the record open here. I don't think so. So I'll just make a motion to close the public hearing. Seconded by Councilwoman McNamara. All in favor? Aye. Okay. So the hearing is closed. We're not going to, it's not in our packet, so we won't be voting today on this, but we'll try to get a resolution for the next packet. All right. Thank you again, Chairman Wisnowski. All right. We're going to move on to the next public hearing, the last public hearing, number 7. Madam Clerk, would you please read the public hearing notice? Sunday, you are muted.
Okay, one more time. Public hearing number 7 for a change of zone application entitled The Preserve at South Country Road for a change from CR 40 to multifamily planned residential district on a 17-acre parcel in order to facilitate development of 104 units, 6 units per acre of affordable rental housing in the hamlet of Quia.
All right, thank you, Sunday. I guess Janice, are you going to introduce this? Janice Shearer, our Land Planning and Development Administrator, will present.
Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Supervisor, members of the board. Yes, so today we're going to hear about the NRP group proposal for 104 units in Quiog. The address, it has 2 addresses, 107 South Country Road and 670 Montauk Highway. And I'm sure they'll want to share their screen, and Charles will be letting them in to show you. But I just want to make it clear that they're proposing access to this development from South Country Road and not from where Strebels is on Montauk Highway. Previously the board, they had come in with a much bigger proposal, and the board at that time did not feel comfortable considering it. I'll remind you, this is discretionary, and you wanted it to be at 6 units per acre was the max you would even entertain. So that is why they are proposing that. That's under a multifamily PRD category, which is a floating zone in our code. And that's sort of a residential cluster where you have to provide some amount of open space. So I will leave it to them to, show their plans and tell you what they're proposing. you may need a refresher because the plan has changed since the original time you saw it. And then at the end, I can tell you where we are in terms of SECRA. Right now, you are lead agency, but we have not made a determination of significance and put the public hearing so you can get a sense of, how people feel about this before you make that determination. So thank you.
Janice, we didn't pause deck this at some point and have any.
Not yet. You're at a, they gave you an extension of time. So you are the lead agency, and the next step will be to make a determination of significance on this application.
Okay. I know with the concern, we did pause deck that one, right?
Yes,
And that
that's
was
correct.
60 units? Okay,
Right.
okay.
And there's several people who are part of the proposal team, and that would be Jonathan Gertman and John Schneider and Chick Voorhees. And I'm not sure who else from their group. But Charles, could you let them in?
Yeah, I think we've all, hi, and thank you. We've all been promoted who are gonna speak today.
Okay, great.
Thank you.
There are people that want to speak later, though.
For the public, yeah.
All right, so John, we'll start with you.
And who, Jay? Did we lose Jay?
Oh, which we have more than one John.
No, we lost you there, Jay, for a little bit.
All right, so who is going to begin this for NRP?
I'm happy to.
Okay.
Jonathan, yeah, thank you, and thank you for that introduction, Janice, and Supervisor Schneiderman and members of the board. We have a short presentation prepared. We wanted to provide a refresher without being redundant, and I know we have a new board member who we're happy to provide more context to separately if that's helpful in terms of previous presentations. Let me go ahead and then on screen we have Chick Voorhees from Nelson Pope and Voorhees, and of course our counsel John Bennett, based just down the road. So I'll go ahead and share this brief presentation. You should I can only see, let's see.
We're seeing it.
Okay, super. And you're only seeing the
parking lot and the units, couple of units,
okay.
3 4 units.
Super. So I can't see folks' faces, so if you want me to stop or anything, please just yell at me. So here's our proposal, and this has been a really uniquely, I think, collaborative process. And I really, we continue to just find our communications with the town and Janice's office in particular to be very productive and collaborative, which has been great. So we've been at it for, I think, just a little bit over 2 years since we first came to see you all. And the project has changed a lot. And also, I think the conditions under which we're coming in have changed. The pandemic certainly, I think, brought to the fore even more than necessarily before, just the desperate need for the folks who help the town run to live there and be able to work, live and work in the same area. And I think has also sort of renewed all of our appreciation and broadened our scope of who an essential worker is and who the critical people are for all of our communities wherever we live. Diving right in, we're just going to touch on these 4 topics and then can answer any questions or go deeper into anything we don't specifically cover today. We think we have a great team here, and we hope that you agree. John Bennett, our local land use council, who was born and raised in town and has been working there for quite some time. BHC Architects, Sal Coco, who is based on Long Island and has done a lot of really impressive work on the East End. NRP Group and my partner, the Metro Group, we're the developer. NRP will be the construction manager and will own and operate the property over the long term. So our name is on this entire process. And when it comes to accountability, you're going to have one group to look at and to point towards through the long haul. John Schneider is on, helping us sort of work through community and government relations and make sure that all parties that get involved in these development projects are up to speed, and that we're communicating with them properly and hopefully extensively. And then of course I mentioned Chick Voorhees MPV and their just expertise and prolificness, if you will, in this part of the island. NRP is a national builder and developer, but we are also sort of where we are. So the local development team and the local construction team, management team is based in the New York area. We really try to work with local experts, as you're seeing. So even though we're in 12 different states, we're working with teams that are local and trying to sort of do as the Romans do, if you will. And hopefully you see that in the development team that we've assembled. We've been developing and building through the pandemic. Last year, we started on the construction of over 3,000 apartment homes. And I really raise that just so you know that we're going to finish what we start, and that there's a dependability there in any sort of economic conditions. I talked about accountability and consistency, and we are currently active in the market and deepening our footprint in the area. So we've been here about 5 years with no end in sight. Just to give you a feel for our work, this is the kind of quality. These are actual pictures from developments across the country, and they vary based on the type of project and location and what the local sort of customs and aesthetics are. But this is the kind of quality that you could expect to see consistently for the project. In terms of this specific development plan, Janice mentioned that we originally came in with 180 units, which was 12 units per acre. I think one of the things we've spent a lot of time talking and dialoguing with both community members and board members about is we recognize that sort of the large number of units, 104 that we're proposing, is, to use a word that's been used a lot the last couple of years, unprecedented in the town. But I also think, we see that this is a unique opportunity in terms of the large amount of land available, and the 17 acres. And that's why we've sort of tried to also focus on the density. And we've halved really from 12 to 6 units per acre, our original thinking, our original planning, and come down again from that 180 to 104. And it's really trying to balance the unique opportunity of a really sort of not environmentally important, well-located, and large parcel that can really make a dent in the affordable housing and workforce housing crisis of the East End, without being overwhelming. And that's 6 units per acre. That was the goal, at least, is to sort of find that balance. And then the other thing that's happened, and this has been such a collaborative process, is last spring, the board, which was slightly a different makeup, but almost the same, sort of revised the MFPRD zoning so that we are perfectly conforming. So Supervisor Schneiderman sort of raised the concern for independent living project. One thing we would just note is that while this is a change of zone, we perfectly conform with that overlay. So it's a use and a density that I think has been pretty thoroughly thought through for this area. Just to orient, right here's Montauk Highway along the bottom of the page, Strobel's Car Wash. South Country Road is just here. This is the 17.5 acres. Again, you can see it historically, it was used for sand mining operations. There is growth, of course, but you get a feel from this aerial that this is not like pristine preservation type of land. It's really, we think, pretty well situated and pretty well sort of formatted, if you will, for redevelopment. This is a site plan that has been through many iterations, and I really credit your planner, Janice Scherer, on sort of thinking through this and how to be efficient in terms of disturbance, but also providing a real setting that matches what you would expect to find on the East End, walking trails, exercise and amenity areas, 2-story flat style homes, which we'll see renderings of, which have a very sort of craftsman classical style that I hope you'll find. And they're somewhat preliminary, but definitely thought through. And we haven't been to the planning board, right, for their blessing, which comes later. But really a development plan that I hope you'll look at and say, this really fits the character of our community. One of the sort of benefits of our thinking is that the STP plant, the county actually has recently revised their regulations. So we're able to be a bit more efficient and use less development area to service the buildings. And at one point, I know we had talked about the mobile home park just on the other side of East Lane being connected in. That, you know, we met pretty significant resistance from their ownership of. And when we went forward with this site plan, part of the conversation that, you know, was being had was to have a more sustainable and, if you will, less disturbance of a site plan. We did sort of opt to take the more efficient STP, which will certainly serve this property more than adequately, but does limit the opportunity to serve it to this property. Just to bring that up. Here are some renderings of what we're thinking for the buildings. Hope you see sort of natural materials, you know, pitched roof, sort of a classic cottagey, hamlet style of housing that sort of speaks to the more common single family home architecture. I won't pretend to be an architect, but to give you a feel for how we're thinking and the setting into which they would fit. Adequate and close parking that's convenient, and blue skies, as you know, we hopefully are getting out there on the East End today. Just to give a couple more details on the project overview before I hand it over to Chick to sort of get into a little bit of more specifics on what we've studied and the work that we've done to date. Proposing 104 apartments, as you can see. The project will be designated as will be reviewed and designated by a third party under our sustainability program. That is shifting, of course, as time goes on, and when we get to construction start, the program we fall under, you know, maybe LEED, it may be Enterprise Green Communities, it may be National Builders Association, but we will have a third party certification of our development, and it will be sustainable and really cutting edge in terms of energy usage and green practices and green construction practices. The project we're proposing is mostly almost all 1s and 2 bedrooms with 15% 3 bedrooms, trying to really be conscious of, you know, the any, you know, new additions to the infrastructure, but wanting to really make sure we're serving the need and the folks in the community. The income range you'll see is really a wide range. $34,000 for sort of the lowest income, $700 rent, and then over $100,000 at the high end, you know, the sort of the biggest 3 bedroom at the highest income restriction. All of the units will be income restricted, and so rent restricted. So within a range that everybody has to meet, and well over half the average will be over $50,000 of a household income. So you start to get a feel for who can afford to be here. It's on the one hand, it's, you know, folks who work at the restaurants and sort of make that economic development happen. Also, it's teachers. Also, it's, you know, civic employees. Give you a feel for, you know, who's here in the working residents who will live here. One thing I'll just highlight is we did have a chance with in the housing office with Kara to confirm that over 80% of their wait list right now are existing Southampton residents. That's probably something you'll hear us mention again, because we think it's so indicative of just the need, which you know about so well. Chick, if you'll take us through section 4, that'd be great.
Sure. Thanks very much, Jonathan. Good afternoon, supervisor, members of the board, and town representatives. My name is Chick Voorhees. Happy New Year to everyone. You all know me. I am a certified environmental professional, certified planner, and have been with for 30 years and practicing environment and planning on Long Island for well over 44 years. So as Jonathan mentioned, we've done a lot of background work. We have a great team. Plans have been prepared, and we were asked to prepare a number of studies with respect to the property. And you have that in the form of an expanded environmental assessment form that was submitted in August and can be obtained from Janice's office. So just a few of the studies. Obviously, the document has much more detail. We looked at topography and all things related to geology, soils, slopes. We did slope analyses. We conducted soil borings on the property. We have phase 1 and phase 2 environmental site assessments. Really, no significant impediments to development or constraints have been identified with respect to any of these studies. And the phase 2, you'll be happy to know, indicates that no further investigation or remediation is needed on the property. We looked at water resources. This includes stormwater management, depth to groundwater, soil leaching capabilities. As Jonathan mentioned, we have a sewage treatment plant, and we're connecting to public water. Again, no adverse impacts have been identified with respect to water. We do have ecological inventories of the property, and I will point out that 31% of the site will remain completely natural, and about 24% of the site will be landscaped in some way, but with revegetation and non-fertilizer dependent vegetation. So over 50% of the site will remain in those coverage categories. And as I said, a lot of natural vegetation will remain. We believe the use is compatible within the community. We looked at land use, zoning, and land use plans. We believe it's consistent with comprehensive plan goals, specifically compatible use and affordable housing. We also looked at community services with respect to tax revenue, job creation, community service providers. We reached out to those providers and no significant constraints have been identified to date. Traffic study prepared by R&M Engineering indicates that there will be no change in the level of service at traffic intersections in the area. And we looked at community character with respect to the architecture, which you've seen examples of, and I believe it's very attractive and consistent with the character of the area and the South Fork and specifically the town. And the project has been designed in such a way as to provide buffers and really blend in with the residential community, but also recognizing that there are mixed land uses in the area. And finally, in terms of cultural resources, there have not been any resources identified that would be impacted by this project. We have one more slide and then we're going to finish up. We looked at the proposed MFPRD use as described, and that's really this first column under proposed project. We also did a comparison in section 4 of the expanded environmental assessment form, and we looked at the full potential development under the current CR40 zoning. And as you know, under the code, there is a provision for density transfer in chapter 330-7D1. And our estimates are that we could basically yield a total of 30 single-family lots. These could contain homes up to five bedrooms in size. And in that scenario, there would be no affordable housing. We're certainly very limited, where we're providing 104 units, 100% of the project as affordable housing. The total bedrooms would be just a little bit under what we're proposing under this scenario that basically would be considered existing zoning. The traffic for that particular project would be less, but we do have a traffic study that analyzes traffic on the roads based on our project. And as I said, there was no change in level of service. And the school age population would be greater under an as of right full residential scenario. So those are some of the things that we wanted to just summarize. We recognize it's important to get public input. Our team is certainly here to answer questions if you have any. And I will remain available. And I thank you for your attention.
All right, thank you, Chick. Let me go to the board first, just to see if there's any questions. I'll ask, I don't know who can answer this. In terms of property taxes, is there a pilot being proposed, or is this already on the tax rolls if it's built? How does that work? Does anybody know?
I'll let Jonathan comment if there's any incentives being sought.
Sure.
After that, I can certainly comment on some of our findings.
Right now, it is on the
taxation.
tax rolls, and I think Chick's team did a fiscal analysis that we would increase the assessment pretty significantly. We haven't really looked at the pilot option in a sort of some time. The tax assessment is pretty reasonable. So, you know, we'd like to get it done just as is on the current assessment.
Okay, so it would pay standard property taxes, so
that's how we're currently contemplating it, but I would, you know, as conditions, you know, as economic conditions change or, you know, costs, et cetera, I wouldn't want to close the door completely on potentially pursuing a pilot.
okay. I just want to make sure that there's revenues to offset any increase in policing that may occur. You know, sometimes these pilot programs go to the school and not to the town. I want to make sure that the town also has funds to, you know, for whatever it might be.
Sure.
For the services,
Okay.
the additional
Yeah, I
development.
can just comment a little bit. Page 318 of the document, as well as the appendix that Jonathan mentioned, does have tax generation and distribution. And we are estimating that taxation would go up to about $125,000 per year, which would be a substantial increase of about $110,000 over current taxes. About 76% of that, or 75.5%, is school district taxing. I think there's even a representative of the district that may be present today. You know, as you said, the lion's share of that would be available to the school district. And then all of the other tax jurisdictions, including police, would have their appropriate tax distributions. So that is part of the work that we've performed to date.
And so just to be clear, I mean, we are not currently anticipating seeking a real property tax exemption.
Okay, thank you. Is there any other questions from any board members before we go to the public? Councilman Schiavone?
Thank you, Supervisor. Mr. Voorhees, would you review again, there's a part of your presentation where you were noting that this could potentially yield 30 units, you said, on 17 acres in the CR 40 zone. If you would you kind of go over that again for me and the public?
Absolutely. Hi, Tommy John. Good to see you.
Good to see you. Thank you. Same to you.
So if you review chapter 337D1, it provides a table that indicates the zoning districts that are eligible for increased density as a result of transfer of residential density. And so that's what we're anticipating here. It is recognized that it would require that transfer of density. And in that case, you're able to go to a maximum of a equivalent R20 zoning. So we have a yield map in the report based on 1 acre yield, and we doubled that for the R20 zoning and basically estimated that 30 result. In that case, we would expect, you know, moderately large homes of 5 bedrooms. And the table before you is what I explained before. And there is an additional table in the expanded EAF that goes through this in even more detail, comparing what we termed as of right under existing zoning and comparing it to the proposed project. So I hope that helps the understanding.
It does. I was just wondering how you got there. Looking at the CR 40 dimensional regulations. Thank you.
You're welcome.
And some of those homes could probably apply for accessory apartments as well, so you could end up with additional units that way too. All right, any other questions from board members? Councilman McNamara?
Yeah, I just had a question. Do these units remain affordable units? Or is there an end date to that?
The baseline is typically a 30 to 40 year restriction that goes on the title. And then depending on sort of the restrictions of various financing groups, I've seen that go over 50 years.
Okay.
At least 21 of the units in this zoning category, which is 20%, if you did do 104, 21 of those units have to remain in perpetuity as affordable.
Yes,
no matter what
indeed.
happens. They're
Thank you for
always
that
going to be
reminder.
sort of in our town system.
Thank you.
Okay, Councilman Martell?
Yeah, just a question on your projection for the school children. You had 33 on the chart. There's 80 second and third bedrooms listed here. To me, that means closer to 80 kids. Have you been in contact with the school district? And what has their feedback been?
Thank you, Mr. Councilman Martell, and great to see you. Yeah, we do have a report as part of the environmental assessment that goes into that. We use multipliers that are recognized across Long Island as being generally conservative. Number of school-age children. It's based on the number of bedrooms, and the data has been pretty reliable, if not, as I said, conservative in projecting the number of school-age children. We did send a letter to the school district. I'm just trying to check if we had a response. I don't believe we did get that response, but if I get further information as we go through the hearing, I will update you. And as I said, it may be that we have a member from the school district here today. So hopefully that's helpful.
We did have a chance to meet with the previous superintendent, and would welcome the opportunity to, and we'll reach out after to re-engage that. But we did have that meeting originally under the higher density proposal. Chick, is it worth just mentioning, not to get too in the weeds, but in addition to the fact that I think the folks, at least industry-wide, have sort of seen the Rucker study as conservative to begin with, the income restriction piece also further sort of hits the projections. Just by way of
that's useful. Thanks.
Well, I know the school component is important. This is something that was brought up by the planning board as well, and was brought up in some of our earliest meetings. And as you all well know, some school districts can take 30 to 80 kids without a problem. Other school districts, it could trigger some need for facilities and infrastructure.
All right, thank you. I see our sole assessor has joined us too. I don't know, Lisa, did you want to comment on the assessment issue? Is that why you joined?
No, I just logged on in case there was a question about, the assessment. I wasn't sure if there was, so I said I'll just log on just in case. So.
Okay, all right, thank you.
Mm-hmm.
All right, so are we ready then to go to the public?
Oh, I had one question, just a clarification. Early on in our earlier discussions, when you presented to us, we were talking about sort of not a line in the sand, but we were talking more around 80 units. I'm a little uncertain how we got to this. I understand the overlay. Did you guys acquire additional properties to be able to expand to that 104? Is that what I'm seeing?
No.
You're muted.
Yeah, I think we're the same size as 17, a little close to 17 and a half, and that 6 units per acre. I know that the number 80 had been mentioned, and our sort of feedback was that it is a big property, and it is a arm's length sale transaction, and the feasibility does become problematic when we have to buy such a big piece of property, but become overly limited on the units. And I thought we landed on 104, the 6 units per acre.
Okay. Thank you.
John, I think maybe the confusion is, it's not our proposal, it's their proposal. They're proposing 6 units per acre over 17 plus acres. So I know we internally had talked about, smaller property, smaller number of units, but I don't think we shrunk it beyond 6 units an acre. So I think that this is what they're requesting and this is what we'll have to vet.
No, I understand that. Originally, we were still dealing with the 12 units per acre, and it was a large number. I think originally 180, and you guys, you dropped that, significantly to 104. I just wanted to understand that, the public to understand how that works, and make that clear, and also clear that you're not building a single unit. You're building, areas that contain that aesthetic, trying to get that aesthetically acceptable to the community as best as possible. But it was to me, the overlay is a little bit of an issue, but we can talk about that at another time.
Yes, it's eight buildings. I don't think I mentioned that. Thank you. It's 8 buildings plus a clubhouse that these units are spread across the 17 acres.
All right.
And
Thanks.
as Janice mentioned, the environmental review is ongoing, so that, that'll be a factor into whatever final determinations are made by the town board on this application as well.
Yeah, that's thank you, Jim. I took a long-winded way to get there, but thanks for clarifying.
All right. All right. Any other town board questions for the presenters or for the NRP group? All right. Let's go then to the public. And I guess, Jessica, I see you're here. So you're going to have to unmute you. You're with Libby.
Hello. Can everyone hear me?
Yes. Jessica, you have 3 minutes to make your comments now.
Okay, perfect. Thank you, everyone. First, let me say hello and thank you, everyone, for taking the time out to listen to me today. I am here on behalf of the Long Island Builders Institute, and I'm here to read a testimony on behalf. So, the Long Island Builders Institute is the largest residential builder trade association in New York State, and we wish to express our strong support for the development of the reserve at South Country Road in the village of Southampton, which of course we've all been speaking about for a little bit now. Ultimately, our purpose today is to ask you, the town board, to expedite the development by providing a negative declaration under the secret laws of the state of New York, mostly because much of the review of the project has already taken place with the local community, and there have been multiple reviews done, assessments, different firms involved, the land development, land management division, I believe, has been involved. So some notable details, some of them have been, will be repeated, but I think that they're worthy of mention. That first off, the requested zoning change is the most stringent with respect to design and open space requirements as this multifamily cluster that they're requesting. So out of anything, the project's going to be regulated and the design's going to be the utmost out of any multifamily cluster that you could have. Additionally, the property is not designated a priority target preservation site, and over 30% is going to remain as forestry as is, and there's going to be revegetation efforts, which will aid the town. It's going to preserve open space. It conforms with the community character, as no building's going to be over the 2 stories and the height that's required by the town code. And then additionally, I know there's been a lot of talk about the 6 acres per unit, 6 units per acre. But as the project sits with the 6 units per acre, it's less dense than most multifamily developments that take place on Long Island. And additionally, there's a nearby mobile park home, which is estimated to have a density at the moment of 8.3 units per acre. So it's actually going to be less dense than the mobile park home that's already existing in the community. So I believe that, and the Long Island Builders Institute, we all believe that the project can exponentially aid the housing shortage that Southampton and the entire region is experiencing at the moment. And in what was it, 2016, the Long Island Index noted that the town of Southampton itself has specifically a shortage of 6,000 units for workforce housing. So I just want to note that the 104 units that are all going to be affordable can definitely aid this workforce housing shortage that we are experiencing. And it allows for the participants in our community to stay in our community, to remain in our community with COVID moratorium that's about to be lifted. So ultimately, time is in the essence, I think we all know, in creating more housing. And I think everything that's been outlined, reviewed, assessed, and shown with this project, it's conforming to the community character, every town code that comes by, the comprehensive plan, it furthers the town's initiatives. And I feel as though anything that's evidence towards a negative secret declaration can already be found within all of the reviews done. So thus, with everything said, the
3
Long Island
minutes.
Builders Institute respectfully urges this town board to make this happen and expeditiously provide a negative secret declaration in order to provide the housing that this community desperately needs. That is all. I could take any questions.
Thank you, Jessica. We're in public comment, so we wouldn't have questions for you, but thank you.
Thank you, everyone.
Kevin is next.
All right, Kevin, I don't see a Kevin on my screen. Oh, I see. Yeah, here he comes. All right, so again, each speaker is afforded 3 minutes to make their comments known. And we do ask you to identify yourself at the beginning of your presentation. You'll have to unmute, Kevin, and then we'll allow you to be heard.
Can you hear me?
Yep.
My name is Kevin Moynihan. I live on Peters Lane in Queog, relatively close to the area that this is being designated for. I have some major concerns. I don't want to really waste too much time here because apparently this is later in the game than I had thought. But the impact of what this may have on the surrounding community is, beyond intense and negative, in my opinion. I kind of laugh a little bit at the presentation only because a lot of the photos that were used are very old photos from aerial views. There's presently, I think, 6, maybe 7 homes that are built literally adjacent to the property that we're talking about that are like, I don't know, 7,000 square feet homes, maybe 5,000 square foot homes. And my concerns are more traffic related. South Country Road, as much as they're talking about, oh, we're not going to interfere with Montauk Highway. South Country Road is a very, very highly trafficked road. It's probably almost equivalent to what Montauk Highway is as of the last couple of years. People cut through there tremendously going towards Quogue and getting on 27. So there's a school issue I feel clearly hasn't been answered based upon what comments have been made. Traffic issue, in my opinion. There's no public transportation. They're saying that the access is going to be from South Country Road, but we all know that there'll clearly be some form of walking path that'll end up being made by residents and or people that'll go out to Montauk Highway because it's very convenient there. They'll walk maybe even through where the trailer park is right next door. And speaking of the trailer park, I kind of counted, there's about approximately 50 trailers within that trailer park right there, which is half of the amount of units that they're requesting. Granted, the property is a little bit more larger that they're looking to build on, but it's not even, in my opinion, it's way too many. I'd rather see 50 or 60 3-bedroom units in there than the amount of 1 and 2s, because then you have literally dedicated families that are doing this. I don't find it to be, the other way is just going to end up becoming disastrous in my opinion. So my main request here is not to vote on this today. I don't clearly think they have enough information for you guys too, based upon the school topic. But, now that this has gotten to where it has, there's a tremendous amount of people that I spoke to in the last 48 hours that are not available to be part of this today, that have some major concerns. So at a minimum, you guys need to have, a minimum of 30-day, if not longer period of a write-in period for you guys to see the opposition that you're going to end up facing with this, because this is a little bit extreme, in my opinion, of what they're looking to do to that small piece of property. That's basically the gist of my concerns. I'm going to write a formal outline, but I don't want to waste any more time, because I see that there's a lot of people here looking to talk. So thank you. Thank you for your time, all of you.
You're not wasting anyone's time. We appreciate your comments. All right. We'll move on to the next. Who's next, Charles?
Milo.
All right, Milo, you'll have to unmute.
Supervisor, before we go forward, just because I've gotten a lot of feedback on this so far, can we just make it clear that we're not voting on anything today? This is a very long process, because I think a lot of people are confused and they think that this is it, and they don't understand there's going to be more opportunities for them to weigh in on the project.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. And I think Janice had mentioned it earlier, but yeah, I guess it is a little bit of an unusual that we're having a hearing at this stage of the game, but I think it was more for the public's benefit to alert the public that this application is in. But as Janice can further explain, there's a lot more to it. There's going to be more significant environmental reviews and other.
Right, thank you. It's just that we did have this hearing in advance of the determination of significance. So you heard one speaker say advance a neg deck, another person is saying a pause deck. We take all that information and we'll give you a full recommendation. This is just to get some public input at the earliest possible stage, which is what SECRA likes you to do. So that's what we're doing. And the board, certainly you can take as long as you want, because as I told you earlier, this is a discretionary action. So the applicant is willing to answer all your questions, and it's sort of a fact-finding mission of what more information might you need.
I know.
Yeah, thank you,
I
Cindy.
listen to you. You talk around yourself. You need bullet points.
Yeah, well, I didn't. I literally, they just
Someone
clicked me
is
on. I didn't expect to
unmuted,
speak.
so
I thought I was
Kevin,
going to
I
be
think
second on the
Hey,
list. I
Kevin?
was the first person.
Kevin, I think you're.
I know. I want to hear the rest of this.
But let me finish, because they're just talking bullshit right now. I don't have time to sit here and listen
Kevin,
to this
you
whole thing.
need to mute.
So can I-
Kevin, mute.
You.
Charles, mute him.
I got.
Thanks, Jeff.
Kevin,
Thanks, Charles.
I just
All right. Appreciate
I-
that.
say-
Thank you, Cindy, for raising that question. Actually, there's a lot of steps. I think a speaker before said it was late in the game. It's not late in the game. And we haven't heard from Planning Board. We haven't heard from the Suffolk County Planning Commission. We haven't finished the SECRA process. So there's no resolution today to approve the project. That's not something that could happen today. And yes, we're likely to leave the record open for additional comments, possibly even a second hearing date is likely. So we're not trying to avoid the public. We welcome the public's participation in this process. All right, so we're going to bring
I just wanted to add that, Janice graciously gave a lot of her time and presented that what we just talked about to the local CAC West here. So, if some of the community may be coming in late making assumptions here. So I appreciate that clarification. Thank you.
All right, so let's get Milo unmuted and we'll give you 3 minutes to make your comments known.
Hello, council members. I've been here since I was born, as has my father and grandfather, and I think my great grandfather moved here. And as the Hamptons and Southampton town becomes more of a kind of vacation destination for a lot of the elite, both in New York City and the world, there's been increasing problems with housing for so-called locals, as well as a lot of the seasonal workers who come out here to make their livings. And I'd just like to express my support for this housing development, as there are lots of people who have applied, I think in the thousands now, who have applied to affordable housing and have yet and are still on a wait list due to the shortage available. And I feel many of the problems presented towards this, including traffic and the preservation of the area, will be similar in any area to which is built, in which it is built. And so I'd just like to express, in short, I'd like to express my strong support for this project. And perhaps the only additional comments I can make is that the public transportation would definitely solve a lot of issues with, I believe, in my opinion at least, with the traffic, as Mr. Kevin M. said. But I feel that is still a long way away in the development plan and all that. So yeah, I just like to express my support for this program. Thank you.
All right, thank you, Milo. All right, Charles, who's next on the speaker list?
Miss Lucci is next. She's coming in.
All right, Alessandra.
Hi, good afternoon. Thank you so much for making this available to normal people to be able to speak in the meeting. I'm at work. I've been following the media for a long time. I'm a strong supporter of this program. I don't know if anybody of you have experienced a loss of a property due to fire. And how horrible is that? And there's a lot of fire, and these people from East Hampton, Bridgehampton, South Harbor, Southampton, they're volunteered. Sometimes they don't have affordable living. We need to do it for them. We need to do it for the ambulance people. We need to create this affordable housing. You even in the government in Southampton Village, you have there are people lacking housing. So these 104 units is just a drop in the bucket for the crisis that we're facing. I'm a business owner. I also have, I was lucky enough to purchase a house last year in Southampton. I'm trying to fix it and apply for the accessory apartment. But we need this. It's for the people who are good for the community. You firefighters, you ambulance, you nurses. Even at the beginning of this whole meeting, you had a lack of staff in Southampton Hospital, obviously due to the COVID, but also due to housing. So just please consider this project. Thank you so much for the opportunity.
Okay, thank you, Ms. Lucy.
Chairman Supervisor, I'm sorry, just wanted to very respectfully ask that you ask the speakers to state their address, if I may. Thank you.
We don't want to know their actual address, but they could say the hamlet perhaps that they live in. Okay.
Southampton Village.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you, Chairman. Thank you, Mr. Schneiderman. Thank you.
Okay.
Michael Daly's next.
All right.
You can get him in here.
Hi, good afternoon, and so glad that you're having this this discussion. And welcome to Cynthia McNamara. You're a terrific community leader and an advocate, and I think we're all lucky to have you on board and the board. So what I'm clearly in support of this zoning change. We're all aware of the drastic need that we have for affordable community housing in our township. We believe, I'm one of the people involved in East End YIMBY, but our goal is not just about large projects. Our goal is to support right-sized projects, whether it be accessory apartments or cottages or multifamily housing, and all size projects, as long as they're right-sized and they're rightly placed. And this property at 17 acres adjacent to the airport and Montauk Highway and South Country Road and where it's located is appropriately located, in our opinion, for a community development of this size. I learned how to drive. I grew up in West Hampton, and I learned how to drive on South Country Road with my Uncle Jimmy when I was like 12. Every time we'd go up to the recycling facility, he'd let me get behind the wheel and would tootle down the road. Now, things have changed since then, but I also know the Strebels and the Strebel family, and the fact that Bob Strebel had wanted to do something with this property that would serve the community well. He had proposed a senior housing some years back, and he's been approached to sell it for luxury development. And this is what he's chosen to do with the property, is to serve community, something he's done his whole life with his businesses, his families, his service as mayor. So this is the right place for this kind of zoning change. I know you're not approving the project. I know that there's still more information to come. As Chick Voorhees talked about, on page 318 of the information that they've put together for you, there's already been a lot of information that's been submitted on this that the public necessarily hasn't had the chance to see. So my hope is that this does not result in a positive deck. I think that would just kick the can further down the road while we're in the middle of a crisis. But I appreciate the need in our community for nurses and EMTs and police officers and town and village workers and so many of the essential workers. You look at this development, which rents start at $700 a month, and the maximum is $2,600 a month. One of my day job is a real estate agent, and I've got 30 to 40 people on a list right now who would love the opportunity to live in an apartment with these kind of rents. So I hope you'll look upon this positively and do in fact change the zoning for this particular property, because we believe it's in the right place at the right time. Thanks very much.
Thank you, Michael. Charles, who's next?
Hey, Anthony Hitchcock is next.
All right, Tony Hitchcock, you'll have to unmute yourself. Tony, you're still muted. Oh, there you go.
Hi, my name is Tony Hitchcock. I'm a resident of Sagaponack, and I've lived on the East End on the South Fork for 55 years, which makes me an old person. But I want you to know that I am fully in favor of this proposal for the preserve at South Country Road. This kind of housing is unbelievably important to provide housing for workers who are meeting the needs of our community. I spend my working time as a volunteer treasurer of two local organizations, Hayground School and OLA of Eastern Long Island. And Hayground School lost a crucial faculty member last year because she could no longer afford to rent housing out here, and she had to move to another state. And of course, OLA serves the Latino community, and our constituency are workers who are working hard in this community, but finding it impossible to live here. And so are ending up having to live further down the island, contributing to the transportation nightmare that we see on many mornings. And so there's no question that this development would be a major, if small, first step in the direction of providing affordable housing to workers like teachers, like the workers in the construction industry, and of course our firefighters and policemen and teachers, all of whom are finding it harder and harder to live out here. I hope you support this project. I know you will give it very careful consideration, because every project you do, the town board and the planning board jump in and do a really thorough evaluation, but I hope in the end the evaluation is positive. Thank you.
All right, thank you, Tony.
Catherine
Charles,
is
who's
next.
next?
Catherine?
Can't hear you, but Catherine, is that
Yeah.
Catherine Sonka?
Yes, she's next.
Mute. Can you see me and hear me?
And hear you.
Can't see you.
There we go. Hello.
Oh, different Catherine.
How about now?
Yeah.
Okay, Catherine.
Okay. Greetings,
What's your
everyone.
last-
Biddinger.
what's
Biddinger,
your-
and I live in Quiog.
Okay.
I am a 39-year resident of Quiog. I effectively grew up here. I'm an architect. And the majority of my work has been in with rental properties. And I, first of all, want to just say that I don't think there's anyone that I have met who is not supportive of and sees the need for affordable housing. Before I go any further, want to say that I absolutely see the need. I have worked for 30 years on the East End, North and South Fork. And the people that I work with in the trades have a horrendous time getting to projects east of where we are now, Quiog. I think for me personally, and most of my neighbors here, I'm within probably 300 yards of this project. I'm east of Carwin Lane. It's really a scale issue. It's the design is beautiful. Everything looks right, all of the work that's been put into it. But I think, I think the need needs to be distributed, not just so far west in the town of Southampton, and to put a very large development in this one area, which, as several people have noted, Kevin and others, I don't think, I live right here. I've seen the traffic change since COVID and since Carwin Lane, as Kevin pointed out, since those houses have gone in, the traffic has already dramatically increased on both Old Meeting House Road where I live and Old Country. There's just, I don't know what traffic, reports everyone is talking about, but I can tell you firsthand that it's already increasing. Also, the direct route from this location on Old Country Road for anyone in the trades heading east is going to be straight down past the Quag Wildlife, where there's already a log jam, and trades work 7 days a week in the town of Southampton. So again, I think it's really a matter of scale for this project. And with all due respect, the sand mining thing, that's a half a century ago. I used to walk my dogs on that property, and it is a pitch pine and oak forest for a lot of it. But mostly I just think it's a density issue. In 2020, there were 797 residents in the hamlet of Quiog. And no doubt from my experience, there will be probably 300 people with these 104 units minimum. And at that, 300 people, 154 cars, that's almost a 40% increase in the population of our hamlet. And as much as I support it being on a smaller scale, like in Spionk, perfect, I really think that this is just not right for here. And the people who think it's not going to impact us, I'm sorry, I have to really professionally disagree. So that's my opinion, and I know a lot of my neighbors feel the same way. Anyway, thank you for your time.
All right, thank you, Catherine. All right, Charles, who is next? I don't hear Charles. I do see Barbara Weber Floyd, though.
You have to unmute, Barbara.
Good afternoon, everybody. I couldn't agree more with everything that Catherine just said. I'm struck by the people who keep saying this fits the character of the neighborhood and they all live east of the canal. We are a small hamlet. We are struggling with the increase in traffic and noise by the recently newly built developments that are here. I live on South Country. I live down the road from this proposed development. And I found so many things in the presentation that were disingenuous. To compare this to a project which would be completely built private homes, as opposed to comparing it to a much smaller project of affordable housing and leaving more open space. To say that it would have no negative impact on the environment is absolutely untrue. Absolutely untrue. We are already struggling with the issues of traffic and noise. All the access will be on South Country. The statement was made that 104 units are unprecedented but necessary. You cannot put 104 units on one location and say that it is not going to impact the population that lives here. Yes, it's unprecedented for a reason. It is much too big for this area. The statement made that it fits the character of the community is also completely false. There are no multifamily dwellings here. It will not fit the character of the community. As Catherine said, it has a potential to add 300 more people and be 40% larger than what this hamlet is right now. I have a son who graduated from the West Hampton Beach High School. I can tell you that the impact of that number of children on this school district will be profound. I implore the board to vote against this zoning change. I think you will be opening the door to the destruction of open space here in Quiog. I think it's ironic this project is called the Preserve because it will do the exact opposite. It will destroy the open space that we have. I resent the implication that those 17 acres are environmentally negligible. So therefore, let's develop on all of it. I implore the board to consider a much smaller project. This project is 3 times the size of Spion Commons, and that was built in a much more commercial area. Come drive on South Country and see how rural it is, how much wooded areas we have, how much pine barrens we have, and then make a determination on the size that is needed for a project like this. Why couldn't it be a mixed project, a much smaller project of affordable housing, not in multifamily dwellings, and preserving some of the space? I listened to those presentations of properties to be purchased by the Preservation Board. I believe all of them were east of the canal. There is not enough attention being paid to those of us west of the canal and preserving our open space. I implore the board to not make this zoning change and to consider a much smaller project that would be a mixture of affordable housing and preserving open space. And I will tell you, as a member of the community who lives on South Country, we are only now waking up to this project. I did not know about it till I read it in the Southampton Press. We will be organizing together. I will be reaching out to Catherine and Kevin and everybody else who lives in this neighborhood because this is the wrong project for our community. And I
30 seconds
for the board to take that into consideration.
Thank you, Barbara. All right, Charles, who's next?
Next, Jean is next.
Hi, thank you very much for allowing me to speak. I 1000% agree with Catherine and Kevin and Barbara. I also live very close to the area in Quiog. I have a ton of questions. I don't know if this is the appropriate time, but I'm just gonna shoot them out. So hopefully you guys are considering them as well. But I'd love to understand, how is affordability going to be monitored? How will the income of the tenants be monitored? And if they go over the income levels, will they be asked to leave? will the units be required to be the primary residence of the occupants, and how will that be monitored? Just some add-ons, is there storage capabilities or availability for the tenants? And, you know, as an opinion piece, I agree the density is too large. Traffic on South Country with the addition of, I think it is 7 homes, they're not even all completely built, but the traffic on South Country has been drastically impacted. And I agree with the number of additional cars that will be a part of this. It will make South Country, we'll have to put a stoplight on every street block that's currently on South Country. So I appreciate the opportunity to have my voice heard. I encourage you to really think about the density of this project. I agree, affordable housing is so important, and we do need to do something about it. But if we're talking about affordable housing to impact the trade parade going east, this won't do it. So thank you again.
All right, thank you, Jean. Is it Jean or Jeannie? I'm not sure, but
It's Jeannie. Thank you, Jack.
Jeannie. Okay.
Jerry is next.
All right, Jerry.
Hi. Thank you, everyone, for your service for our communities. My name is Jerry Maslanka. I'm in the village of Sag Harbor, and I've been there since 1993. And I'm here to speak about the crises we have with affordable housing. And I'm very much in favor of this change to allow us to provide more housing for those people who desperately need it. As was mentioned before, we're minus 6,000 shortage of places we need. And, you know, it's always, everybody's very supportive of the housing, but they don't want it in their neighborhood. And that's really, we have to think differently and have a paradigm shift. I think we're all impacted on the whole East End by the crises that we're under. It's all the way from Montauk, you know, much further west to the end of Suffolk County. It's throughout the country that we have this problem, and we've ignored it. And it's affected our environment. We spend more time on the road because of traffic, and we're not with our families or doing other things that is much more constructive with our time. And so I think personally, this is a right size project, very right size. In fact, I'm sad that it's not even bigger. The other thing I would encourage is to expedite this because we really are off the charts and in a crisis situation. We need to do everything we can efficiently and with as much earnestness to move this along, you know, and not do it in a sloppy way, of course, but, you know, we need to move this along. This is it's too late now, but we need to act faster. Thank you very much for your time.
Thank you, Jerry. Charles.
Digger is next. Digger is next.
All right.
You guys, thanks for your time. I just have a couple of questions here. I grew up in West Hampton with the high school, elementary, all that there. I live in Quiog currently, and to echo what everybody else has said, the traffic on South Country is insane. To add these many more units on that block will just, it's going to ruin the whole, everything that's going on there. It's unbelievable. I do have 2 other questions, though. That number that they said are going to join the school seems to be insanely low. For 104 units, telling me what, there's 30 kids? I find that hard to believe. And the traffic only doubling, I think, from as of right to that just doesn't make sense. Can someone please explain that better?
So typically we don't entertain questions during this period. We certainly are recording all of your questions. Everything will be answered as we, you know, review this. So, but we want to let everybody have a chance to just, you can state your questions, absolutely.
Okay, perfect. Those are my questions. And if they could be answered somewhere down the line, I'd appreciate it. I appreciate your time.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Charles, who is next?
Amity. I'm trying to get her in here. Okay, Amity Lucas.
All right, Amity, you'll have to unmute.
Hi. Am I
We can
on?
hear you. We can
Okay.
hear you.
We can't see you, but we can hear you.
Oh. There, now can you see me?
Nope.
Okay. I just want to say this is Amity Lucas. I live in Southampton. I am a local headhunter. And from a recruitment standpoint for my local clients, I'm sure that they would all be delighted to hear this news. It's a step in the right direction. I know there's no perfect location for additional housing, but to me, it sounds like a really good one, close enough for all the businesses. And I disagree with the person who said that the housing units don't make sense with so many individual small units. I actually think it's great because a lot of the people that I interview and place in positions with companies in the Hamptons are just individuals who might not have families yet. There are jobs that are pay lower price points, and it might just be single individual people that also need a small place to live. So I think it's great, and I would love to have a place to refer locals to, and also people that are looking to move out here, because there are so many great jobs in the Hamptons, and unfortunately the companies are having a hard time filling these positions because they can't pay enough to get the people to be able to afford to live here. There's a big problem with that, with things not matching up. So I just want to say I think it sounds great, and I'm excited to hear about it. And hopefully other ones like this can be developed further out east so that people start to drive opposing traffic, going against traffic in the opposite direction. But this sounds like a great start. Thank you.
All right, thank you, Amity. Charles?
Catherine is next.
All right, Catherine Soka.
Yeah, good afternoon, and thank you all for your service, and those who just won re-election, congratulations to you or election. I'm a member of PEER, Progressive East End Reformers. I live in the town of Southampton, and I live in the Sag Harbor School District, so that's where I'm located geographically. I am a retail business owner as well, so I can attest to how difficult it is for folks to find people to be able to work out here. It's really not an easy thing. I support the project. I'd like to say that it sounds like they've already lowered the number of units from the original proposal, if I understand correctly. So I think in terms of the size, it seems to fit the area. I live in a portion of Sag Harbor where it's a similar density to what's actually being proposed, and that density, works pretty well, although the structure of the area is different than what is being proposed. I will say that I really understand the neighbors and their concerns. Being concerned about the additional traffic, it's possible that might happen, but communities do evolve over time, and the housing issue is so critical in our area and has been for the 20 to 30 years that I've been here, that we really do need to react as quickly as we can to have housing spread throughout the area to accommodate people who actually work in the area and make the area thrive for those who come and just vacation here. I'd like to also urge the board to look at potential locations east of the canal. I hear my friends on the west side of the canal saying, hey, everything's happening over in our area. I want development on the east side of the canal. We need to share proportionately in that. And I urge the town board to try to figure out a way that we can do that creatively, building over parking lots, for instance, however you can do it. We do really need to spread the housing around. And community housing will improve the area. When people actually live and work in the area, areas thrive to a greater extent than when you have houses empty for 10 months out of the year. And I think a lot of people can attest to the fact that isn't necessarily a healthy community. So I guess I would just like to close by really thanking the board for considering this project. I think rental housing is absolutely needed in our community. I share the same concerns and questions that Jean asked earlier about how are we going to make sure that it continues to be in the affordable range in perpetuity. So I'd love to get the answers to that at some later point, but I wholeheartedly support this and hope that we can move, the board can move swiftly on it. And I thank you for your time.
All right, thank you, Catherine. And I guess Carolyn Probst is next.
Thank you. My name is Carolyn Probst. I'm the superintendent of schools in the West Hampton Beach School District. Thank you for allowing me to join you for a couple of minutes today. My comments pertain to the tax revenue that the school district could anticipate if this project were to become a reality. I have inquired with the assessor's office, and I understand from the discussion and the presentation today that this information is not known at this time, but I would like to very sincerely express the school district's need for clarity and notice on the tax revenue that could be expected if this project were to move forward. If the school district were to receive an influx of students, which I anticipate we could if this project moved forward, it could result for the need of increased staff, supplies, and potentially infrastructure, all of which would come at a cost for us. So I do want to thank everyone for the information that's been shared today. It's been very informative. I will also say I am here and very readily available, and I would be happy to communicate with any officials at the town about this project. So thank you.
Okay, thank you, Carolyn.
Eleanor is next.
All right, Eleanor Coble.
Hi, I'm not actually Eleanor. I'm on her computer. I'm Eamon Coble. She's actually still here. She's on a phone. I'm Eamon Coble. I'm actually Eleanor's son. I live on 121 South Road in West Hampton. I'd like to express my support for this project and the advancement of sustainable, affordable housing, especially now more than ever for workers who are working in and for our community. The acknowledgement and utilization of the environment around the area of this project is something I especially applaud due to the importance of environmental preservation in our community. Empowering low and middle income workers and enabling them to live in the communities that they're working in. And it's something that will greatly impact the standards of living in our community. The architecture of this project, I think, is very well done and is very beautiful. I graduated from West Hampton High School. I've lived in West Hampton my whole life. This project, I truly believe, will empower our community and west of the canal. The traffic, I think, will always be there. It's not, whether you're from Montauk to the Moriches, it's especially in the summer, it's usually pretty bad. It all depends on how far people are traveling. And in this case, if people who are already working in our community are now who have been living 10 miles away from here, who would not be living here, they aren't traveling as far, which could actually positively impact traffic. If there's a concern, I believe if there's a concern for an influx of new kids in the school that the school can't handle, then that is something that the school would protest. And if that's something that the school can't handle, then that's something that the school would speak out against. So far, I'm not speaking for the school, of course, but if so far that has not happened. This is just, I think, as a young person, as someone who wants to see this community succeed, I think, there's pros and cons to everything. And in this case, providing housing for low and middle income workers in a community, providing such in a state where affordable housing is at a crisis point in such a way that is environmentally sustainable outweighs the concerns of maybe a couple more cars on the road and maybe a couple more kids in the school. Thank you.
All right, thank you. Next up, forgive me if I mispronounced this, Brioni Frege.
Hi, it's Bryony Frege.
All right, close.
Hi, everyone. Yeah, very close.
I am a Sag Harbor resident. I'm also a member of East End DMB, and I'm here just to voice my support for the changing of zoning for this project to multifamily planned residential district. Mr. Coble, thank you. It is so nice to see someone young joining this. I don't know Mr. Coble, but we need, you know, as a social worker and a psychotherapist who works with a lot of young adults on the East End, the young population don't necessarily make it to these meetings, but I hear their voices all the time about how worried they are that they're not going to be able to live here in the community that they love, in the community they grew up in. And we need them. We need them in our fire department. We need them, you know, as teachers. We need them in our local businesses. So, you know, I appreciate what his comments were today, and I support them wholeheartedly. I think this project is in a great location. I think I agree with Ms. Soka. We need more projects further east, absolutely. And you know, I, for one, am advocating for them literally in my backyard for an accessory dwelling unit, as well as anywhere that comes up as an opportunity for community housing on the East End. So I wholeheartedly support this and urge you to move swiftly. Thank you.
Thank you. All right.
Lisa.
Oh, Charles,
Yes.
who's next?
I believe that.
You can speak. Lucy.
Go
Okay,
ahead,
thank
Lisa.
you. Hi, I'm Lisa Beth Meisel. I live in Quiog. Brian is the first person I heard who is looking to put affordable housing in their own backyard. I absolutely agree with this project and that we should be building it. Every person who lives in Quiog has just talked about the size. The size is truly a problem because the traffic is already a problem and it is going to be much worse. We should have affordable housing. We should have it in Quiog. We should have it in many places. Just, I would like it to be kept to a more reasonable size. That's my only statement. Everybody who's saying this size is great doesn't live here. They live in Sag Harbor. They lived in West Hampton. They live in Southampton. They don't live in Quiog. That's all I wanted to say. Thank you.
All right. Thank you, Lisa Beth. Charles, is there anyone else?
That is it. Oh, one more. Sorry.
It's okay.
No, they declined. So that's it.
All right. If you want to be heard at this public hearing, you need to click the raise
Velma.
hand
One
icon.
more. Okay, I have a number. Thelma is coming in.
All right.
I guess they declined. That's 1 second. I'm gonna try it again. Thelma Carter.
I'm not seeing them yet.
I'm gonna try this one more time. Thelma, if you want to speak, don't decline. Okay, I see no other hands.
All right, so let me turn to the board. This obviously is a significant project. You're seeing both quite a bit of support and quite a bit of concern, questions. feel it would not be appropriate to close the hearing. And we could leave the written record open, but I think we should give people additional opportunity to be heard on a project of this magnitude, even though we're not at the final decision-making stage. It's still relatively early on in the process, but at this stage, I think it's important to solicit additional comment and at least make sure that the community is aware that the board is considering this proposal. I don't know how everybody else feels, but I would say let's adjourn it to the next hearing, which I guess was Sunday. When is that? Toward the end of January?
See,
25th.
Supervisor, that I agree with you. I think one of the larger complaints that I've gotten is that the way our meetings are structured right now, the next town board meeting is also going to be at 1 o'clock. I think it's not until March that we actually have a 6 o'clock meeting. Correct me, Sunday, if I'm wrong about that. But I got significant feedback that a lot of people work during the day. People on both sides of this issue, and we're going to give them an opportunity to speak at an evening meeting.
I have one more speaker.
So the meeting on the 20.
I see the Ms. Carter has made it to the meeting, the one that was trying to speak.
John, hold on. The 25th is a 6 p.m. meeting.
No. January, February, the meetings are all at 1 o'clock.
Oh, we changed it because daylight savings, right? I have it down as a 6 p.m. I think that's an automatic.
If I may, Mr. Supervisor, you could adjourn it until that time and we can work through the planning board and Suffolk County reports in the meantime. And that gives you some time.
The February evening meeting, is that what you're saying?
Is there a February evening meeting?
On the 22nd.
That's the problem. There isn't one until March.
You don't have the Suffolk County Planning Commission report yet.
Oh, you have to still do a declaration here of significance, and that's where you'll get a planning board report. So you can adjourn it to an afternoon meeting and at least work through that, and then have another, further
I think
hearings.
quite a bit of. I think we could adjourn it to the 25th, and if we feel we need to add one more evening time, we could either set up a special meeting just to hear this in the evening, or if we feel that we can wait until that March period,
Yeah, I don't disagree. I was just pointing out the problem with that we have with, with people who justifiably can't attend some of these meetings during the daytime, but I recognize that. I think also it's important that the public, and we can't stress it enough, that this is, as you've said it several times, this is very early on in this stage of this project, and there's a lot of public hearings that are going to occur through various phases of this until we can ultimately reach a decision.
All right, well, let me hear from Jonathan too, who's the sponsor in terms of the timing of this. So Jonathan, did you want to weigh in?
Supervisor, if I may, before we do that, I just have a question for, I believe, Janice or maybe Jim. Is this application going before the planning board in that time period between now and the February meeting? I know there was a preliminary review. Okay, and
the
do you know
planning board has already looked at it, and it's on their next agenda again to adopt a report, I believe. And I can double check with Claire, who's been handling it on that end, but the planning board will be issuing a report similar to Concern, where they want to be weighing in because it involves a subdivision and a site plan. And although the town board is lead agency, they're asking that you take their report on, the determination of significance and what they think the important issues are, and they're working on a report at the moment.
Well, I value that. Frankly, I think it's important that we do that to be informed for us to make our decision.
John, the planning board is talking about it on Thursday.
Yes, thanks, John.
Oh, that's why I brought it up. Is Is there an opportunity for public comment in that planning board meeting? It's just it's a public meeting.
This is before you for the public comments.
Right, I understand. I'm just wondering if that component existed for the planning board. All right.
And I
Thank you.
remind everybody too that the written record remains open no matter what we're doing here. And that if somebody can't attend one of these day meetings, they certainly can submit written comments. But I do want to go to Jonathan Gertman for the sponsor in terms of the timing here. So
thank you so much, Supervisor. I mean, it's been a collaborative process with you all and with staff, and we just, we're flexible in terms of we want it to continue to be collaborative. We want you all to feel like you're making a well-informed decision. We sense the urgency of the need, so we never want to lose track of that. If I could ask even for some help, my sort of number one takeaway is that there are neighbors who live very close by to the development who feel like the proposed development, who feel like they don't have enough information. And we've met, with CAC West over the years, and it has been years, but I'd love to just any forum we could create, evening meeting to really dig into the kind of details that somebody who lives, closer to this proposed development might want to dig into. I don't, in this sort of weird environment we live in, we got names, we didn't necessarily have everybody's address. I don't have email addresses. Is there a way even, I could put my email on the screen? Is there some way to post our email address or something so I can try to organize a meeting between now and the next time you all meet to just try to be sharing we just have so much information, and what I'm hearing is, some folks obviously just have a point of view about their community, but to the extent that I can facilitate meetings outside of this, this public forum, I'd love to be able to do that. I just don't know how to. It's a one-way communication in this forum.
Well, I'll point out two things, Jonathan. There were a number of people that are members of the CAC West that did speak. So we can arrange that. I hadn't anticipated doing that until the board had made at least taken the first step forward as, POSDEC or NEGDEC on this. But you're certainly always welcome, and reach out to me, and I'll put you in touch with the chair of the CAC West, and you can give a presentation. I think it always makes sense to do that, but people have to also understand that this is the very start of a long process, and you may be doing more of these. So if you're willing to do that, then let's set it up.
I try to take the point of view that more is more when it comes to talking to, hearing from and talking to our community members. We may not get to an agreement, we may not all be on the same page, but hopefully folks feel like they're informed and educated.
No, if I could just add to that, there is a QIOG association. Ursula Lynch she used to contact my office for a mailing list for the members of that association. I don't know if that's still in existence, but if it is, maybe you want to engage with them as well.
Yeah, they're not as active as they were, but there's a lot of crossover in membership. So, we can do that. Thank you, Sunday. I think that's also a good idea. I don't know how active they are right now. In recent years, they haven't been as active, but
maybe because of the pandemic,
But, yeah, but I think so.
Jonathan, I can give you the contact. I have an email for Barbara Weber Floyd, who spoke earlier, who seemed to be, trying to organize a bit of the opposition there. So, maybe that could give you an opportunity to put together a group of people who are concerned about the project and answer some of those questions.
That would be great.
Okay.
I also heard a lot of people saying even our neighbors saying there's a big need. So
we did have one other person though. We do have one other speaker, Charles has indicated, Thelma Carter, who was trying to get on before. So let's entertain her comments, and then we'll decide what the next course of action is. Thelma, can you unmute?
Trying to get her here. Just unmute. There you go. Can you speak?
I think this is Thelma from the Quiag Association.
Thelma, you're still muted. I don't know if you can hear me, but I can see on my screen that you're muted. So it looked like you unmuted and then muted again.
Yeah,
All right. Don't touch
that's
that
the
button.
trouble. My mouse is having
We
a
can hear you
revenge.
now.
We can hear
Hear
you.
me?
Yeah.
I can be heard. That's amazing because now my machine says I'm mute. But anyway, I'm the president of the Quiag Association. And I live in Quiag and have actually in the same house for almost 50 years. I would make one very brief comment, but I think important. I think it's clear from what we heard today that there are 2 points of view. One says, great, I love it. And the other one says, if you come here, we'll just have to move. And I think that there are ways that you can educate those people who are very much against this project. And I think there hasn't been much to reach out to the people of the community and explain why it's perhaps a good idea for the neighborhood and give them a chance to kick it around. When first it was noted in the neighborhood that this was possibly in the works, I got about a dozen letters from people who live in Quiag, and there wasn't a single one who saw anything at all that was positive about it. So I would like to avoid a civil war if I can, and do the best to explain the importance of this project to the neighborhood and why it's good for even the people who live on the other side of the Montauk Highway. It's been a very difficult thing to do. And I guess the only way we can really do it is by educating the community about the details of the project. And I heard some details today from the people who are planning it and the people who have worked to support it, like the environmental issues and so on. So I think that some meetings or communications with the community, whether you write to everybody who lives in Quiag or whether you plan a meeting for people who live in the vicinity, we perhaps can talk through what the best approach might be, but there needs to be an approach just to avoid any of the nasty stuff that might come down the pike. That's really I'm pleading for education is all I'm doing. And that's the only comment I want to make at this time.
All right, thank you for that, Thelma. All right, so back to the board. I think we just, leave the written record open, but also extend the public hearing to that next date. I think it's the last Tuesday in January, the 25th, which now it does show up on my calendar as a 1 p.m. meeting, so it's been changed. Is that okay with everybody?
Yeah, that's fine.
Great. Do we want to hold off until we continue the environmental review?
No, let's keep it. There's some momentum here. Let's keep the conversations going. Let's allow the applicant some time to meet with some of the neighbors. And I'd like to keep it front and center here for a while.
Jay, since we're meeting via Zoom, could it be an evening meeting?
Well, that's interesting because we did it for daylight savings time so that people wouldn't have to drive. Sunday, I don't know. We typically have done that. Why couldn't?
But a lot of it has to do with not just with the daylight savings times, but also, sometimes we get into weather that is extreme, and to have people leave the building late at night and have to drive home in ice and snow and whatever, certain circumstances, it's been a little treacherous. So,
so the point being,
just for January, February,
it's a Zoom meeting. So
right. That's true.
So we certainly could do it at night. What would be involved with?
When that planning was made, we were going back to live, and that's why it adjusted. When it's Zoom, it doesn't matter to me.
I think though that
I'm good.
Here's what I think we can do. I don't think we can easily change that because we've already noticed public hearings for that meeting on the 25th, but if it extends beyond that, certainly, I think we should shift the February meeting to an evening meeting. The second one there, if we're still entertaining public comment. Jim, I mean, am I right, or would it be complicated to change that January 25th meeting to an evening meeting?
We have notices for that 1 p.m. meeting and we have posters and stuff out right now. So I would recommend the February one. Sorry, Jim.
Right.
The second in February being back to 6 p.m. would be, if it's a Zoom, would be better.
25th is tight. It's only 2 weeks from now.
Yeah.
For as far as notice requirements.
Yeah, people have to post properties and things like that, and it's probably too late to change the one on the 25th. That's what it sounds like.
I'm not sure what information you'd have in 2 weeks anyway. It might be better off to.
Well, I think, Jim, it's more about if it's an opportunity to better educate the local population. It's, we have a new chair in our CAC, and there've been quite a few meetings about it. So, and I've noted that a couple of people who spoke today were also, at those meetings. So, and Janice spent some time with the CAC updating them on the process, the procedure that needed to go through. But I think any opportunity that we can have to get the local residents, informed and up to date so that there's no working at cross purposes, I think it's useful.
So again, I'm not certain what the best course of action is here. We could adjourn it to February 22nd at 6 p.m.
That's a better day.
I would appreciate it. I think that would give Mr. Gertman time to meet with some of the residents as well.
Yeah, that would be fine.
Right. And the planning, and Janice can continue her environmental review. And
Jonathan, does that work for you? That gives you more time.
To come back to this forum the evening of February 22nd, sounds great.
Is that okay?
Yeah, again, it just.
All right, and we'll have to, this
sounds like a good process.
We'll have to just coordinate so that although at the organizational meeting, we've set that meeting for 1 p.m., we're going to amend that meeting schedule. So that'll be a 6 p.m. meeting. So Jim, whatever resolutions we'll need to change the calendar, and we'll make that a 6 p.m. meeting. So, all right, so the record will remain open for written comments throughout, but I'll make a motion to adjourn the public hearing until Tuesday, February 22nd at 6 p.m., likely via Zoom. So
I'll second.
Seconded by Councilman McNamara. All in favor?
Aye.
All right. All right. Thank you. Those who were here for that can
Thank you.
Exit. We still have some more business for the town board.
We have public portion.
We do. Thank you, John. All right, so that was the last of the public hearings. We're going to move on to public portion. In this segment, you can speak to the board about any concern or comment you have, including things on the agenda that we're about to get to, or things that aren't on our agenda. So if you wish to be heard by the town board in public portion, you need to click the raise hand icon. Charles, are you seeing any hands raised?
Surprisingly, there are no hands.
I'm gonna wait another moment. Because I see we have 36 participants, so still.
We went up to 68 today, 68 participants.
Good.
I, Supervisor Schneiderman, Michael Daly, I can't, I'd like to speak if I may. I can't get rid of my cartoon because my video has been disabled, but.
Is that a cartoon? I think that was actually you.
Oh, okay. Thank you. Thank you, Charlie.
What's better?
Just Charlie, yeah, this one is better actually than this one, right?
That's the real cartoon, man.
Go back to the real.
Metaverse is better.
Oh,
What I would like to say is, I understand the whole issue of Zoom versus in person and then hybrid town board meetings is a complex one, and I just want to encourage the town to figure out how to continue to allow people to participate in town board meetings once we are allowed to go back into in-person meetings, because we'll all see, and it's a double-edged sword, that more people can participate in this format. And I've written a letter to y'all about it, but the working people who can take a break, the people with families, the people who can't necessarily leave their houses and drive. I implore the town to figure out how to, even once we go back into in-person meetings, how to continue to make these meetings available online to the public. I think it'll serve us very, very well. So thank you. That's my
Thank you, Michael. And
that's my statement.
I think we will explore the hybrid meeting again, which I thought was successful. But I also, hopefully this pandemic will be in the rearview mirror
Amen.
sooner than later. And, I know with some of these other hearings, when we did Commons, we went to those communities, whether it was in a high school auditorium or at a local, town building. So, it's possible at some point we can get closer. In this case of this last one, the Quiog community, we can find a location if we are having an in-person meeting that will be more convenient for people. So I'm certainly willing, in the same sort of spirit, to make government as accessible as possible to the people who are impacted by the decisions we make as a governing body. So appreciate that.
Yeah, I agree. I agree wholeheartedly. I mean, even in churches and community organizations have figured out how to even hold meetings in other locations, gymnasiums and theaters and things like that, community centers, and still offer a remote component to it. So I hope that we can do that. And thanks very much for your time, and have a great rest of your meeting.
All right. Is there anyone else who wishes to be heard by the board? Please click the raise hand icon so we know that you want to be heard. I'll wait a moment.
I see none.
All right. I will make a motion to close public portion.
Second.
Seconded by Councilman Schiavone. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. All right. I saw that, Cindy. You got there at the end. All right. You'll get used to it. All right. So public portion is now closed, and we're going to move to town board resolutions. Resolution number 1270 of 21 is a notice of adoption to amend Town Code Chapters 330-162, special exception, and 330-33, table of use regulations, listing self-service storage facility as a special exception use in the highway business zoning district. And I do see Janice Shearer, our land planning and development administrators, here with any questions as well. So let's start out with a second. There's a second by Councilman Schiavone.
Second.
All right. So we held a hearing on this. This is for self-service storage. You guys are probably all familiar with these types of places that allow people to store furniture, files, or whatever it might be. Our zoning, if you go to our use tables, they're allowed in certain zones, but they weren't allowed in highway business zones tend to be these sort of destination uses that are not heavily trafficked, or car dealerships, things like that. You don't go there every day, furniture stores and things like that are in highway business zones. We have a lot of highway business zones around town. So the idea, because self-storage is also very low traffic generation, made sense for that zone, and Janice brought this forward. Of course, it's not automatic that you get to build one of these things under the zoning code. It's what's called a special exception. The planning board is empowered to grant it if they determine at their discretion that it meets the general standards and the specific standards for an exception. So I know, Janice, you want to add anything more to that? We held a
No,
public
I
hearing.
mean, we talked about this at work session. The question was whether or not it should just be outright permitted or a special exception. And you went with special exception to add that extra layer of review so that there's buffers, there's better architecture. So we don't just get the boring shipping container self-storage. We get the, nice Hamptons looking one that even, you probably wouldn't see it from the road, but if you did drive in there, it's beautiful. And we have parking and landscaping standards as usual. And, the planning board would then look at lighting and those kinds of issues. But it is a low traffic generator. And I think with those special safeguards in place, it should be a fairly benign use in those highway business districts. Obviously, if it was not meeting those standards, the planning board would still be able to, deny it or require modifications.
So, yeah, we had no negative comments from the, and, self-storage is, a lot of people, because of our water table or FEMA floodplains, they can't have basements, so they don't have a lot of storage room at their homes. Others do, but it is a real need for people. So I'm going to support this.
Well, the planning board did have some comments on it, I guess.
Yeah, the planning board was not really able to articulate why they're not in favor to me. They just said it's not the highest and best use, but at some point, there's a whole list of different uses, and that's really up to a property owner to determine what they think is the highest and best use. And we did have a conversation, at least with the chair, about, well, what do you, if you're looking for preserving the integrity of the roadways and having low traffic, low trip generation, and a use that's minimally used, then that would be the way to go, versus like things like special trade contractor or other more intense uses that are also allowed in highway business. I think they were concerned that you'd be taking away property potential for those special trade contractor uses. But I mean, that really comes down to a property owner deciding what they want to do.
Yeah, I appreciate that. And I agree with you, Janice. Thank you.
Sure.
And the planning commission said it was a matter for local determination, I think.
Yes.
Okay.
I do have to say there is an amendment that needs to be made before you adopt it.
And what is that?
Adoption. In the notice of adoption, we need to remove the December 28th, 2021 and insert today's hearing. And then we need to change it to local law of 2022. Just that, just to update it to be.
All right, so I'm withdrawing my motion to approve. I'll make it a motion to amend. Seconded by Councilman McNamara. My motion is to amend as per what the clerk just said. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Okay, now I will make a motion to approve as amended. Cindy, seconded by Councilman Bouvier. That's fine. All right. Any discussion on it? All right, John, and thank you for bringing the planning board comments forward there too. All right, I'll call the vote. All in favor? Aye.
Aye.
All right, it is approved.
Thank you.
Thank you, Janice, for that, for the help with that. Okay. So the next resolution is number 31 of 2022. It authorizes replacement of electric feed line to attendance booth at West Hampton Transfer Station using Suffolk County contract with Elmco Services.
Second.
Seconded by Councilman Bouvier. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Approved. That was co-sponsored with Councilman Bouvier. The next one, 32 of 22, authorizes supervisor to sign 2022 contract with Suffolk County Office of the Aging to receive additional senior citizen nutrition program funding.
Second.
Seconded by Councilwoman McNamara. Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Approved. 2022-33 authorizes the Southampton Volunteer Ambulance, Inc. to make internal transfers to their 2021 budget. This is basically housekeeping. Anything I think over 5,000 has to go through us. It's just shifting a little bit from one line to another. It was seconded by Councilman Schiavone. Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Aye. Approved. You can see in the body of the resolution where the money is moving about. Resolution 34 of 2022 authorizes the supervisor to execute a public safety answering point or PSAP agreement with the County of Suffolk. Is there a second? Seconded by Councilman Schiavone. We already are a PSAP. It's just continuing that arrangement. That's our dispatch. All right. I'll call the vote. All in favor?
Aye.
Approved. 35 of 22 authorizes the supervisor to execute any and all documents relating to an agreement with Telview Corporation to purchase and install broadcast equipment and software for Southampton Channel 20.
Second.
Seconded by Councilman Schiavone. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Approved. 36 of 22 authorizes supervisor to renew an agreement with Pro software by RC Systems to manage its parks and recreation operation.
Second.
Seconded by Councilman Martell. All in favor?
Aye.
Approved. So just really for Councilman McNamara's edification here. So typically I just say all in favor. I don't typically ask all opposed. If you are opposed or even abstaining, you need to bring it to my attention. So otherwise you'll get swept up with approving things that you might not approve. So there are times when I'll know something is controversial and I'll literally will ask all in favor, all opposed, abstentions, etc. But if I am presuming something is sort of pro forma, typical, I usually will just ask all in favor. Typically, silence is considered a yes vote. So if you want to be opposed, you got to say, you got to speak out. All right. So number 37.
You'll know when I oppose.
What was that?
I had a sense we might.
You'll know when I oppose something.
All right. 37 of 2022, co-sponsored with Councilman Bouvier, authorizes the supervisor to sign an extended contract with LK McLean Associates, PC, for professional services to be provided for historic projects for the Community Preservation Department.
Second.
Second by Councilman Bouvier. All in favor?
Aye. Aye.
Approved. All right. 38 of 22, co-sponsored with Councilman Schiavone, awards and authorized supervisor to sign contract for dry cleaning and laundry services to Hampton Bays Village Dry Cleaners and Carolyn's Good Ground Cleaners for west of the canal and Southampton Village cleaners for east of the canal. This is dry
Second.
cleaning for the police department, seconded by Councilman Schiavone. All in favor?
Aye.
All right, approved. And don't be afraid to ask questions as we go if you're unclear about something. There's no dumb questions, just ask away, okay?
This is Cindy McNamara you're talking about.
I know.
I've done thorough research, don't worry.
I know. All right.
Town Board Resolution 2022-39, award and authorize the supervisor to sign a contract for maintenance on trails in Southampton with Green Velvet Tree Incorporated. I'm gonna have to withdraw this.
Got it.
You're withdrawing it then?
Yes, there's some technical things that need to be corrected. So I'll bring it back.
All right, consider it withdrawn. Rick, you're next.
Town Board Resolution 40 of 2022, award and authorize supervisor to sign contracts for window decals and permits.
Second.
Seconded by Councilwoman McNamara. All in favor?
Aye.
Approved. 41 of 22, renew contract with Novatime, town's electronic timekeeping system.
Second.
Seconded by Councilman Schiavone. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye, approved.
Town Board Resolution 42 of 2022, reject bids and second notices to bidders, maintenance, installation, repair of water mains and hydrants.
So this is for the Hampton Bays Water District. We have a second.
Second.
Seconded by Councilman Schiavone. All in favor?
Aye.
Approved. Yeah, so Councilman McNamara, you already know this, but we also are commissioners of the Water District. Hampton Bays is the only area where we have that role.
Okay.
Everywhere else, it's either private wells or Suffolk
Okay.
County Water Authority. All right, number 43 of 2022, 22 notice, this is co-sponsored with Councilman Bouvier, 2022 notice to bidders for debris removal at the Bel Air Cove Motel.
Second.
Bel Air Motel. Seconded by Councilman Bouvier. All in favor?
Yay. Yeah. Town Board Resolution 2022-44, co-sponsored with Councilman Schiavone, is a local law amending Town Code Chapter 254, peddling and soliciting as it relates to application requirements.
Second.
Seconded by Councilman Schiavone. We held a public hearing on this. Obviously, anywhere where it's crossed out is something being removed from the code. Anywhere where it's underlined is new language in the code, and everything else is existing language in the code. So it's mostly clarifying things. So, all right. Any discussion? We had a motion and a second. I'll call the vote. All in favor?
Aye.
Approved. Let's move along here. It's a long one, John. That's,
Thought
yeah,
what-
I'm scrolling to the end of it. All right, I got it.
It's on
2022.
page 30.
Yep, 2022-45, co-sponsored with Councilman Bouvier, authorized funding extension for Peconic Estuary Partnership from 2022 Community Preservation Fund water quality monies.
Second.
Seconded by Councilman Bouvier. All in favor?
Aye.
Approved.
Town Board Resolution 46 of 2022, co-sponsored with Councilman Schiavone. Notice of public hearing to consider amending Town Code Chapter 5-2 entitled "The Enumeration of Authorized Officials" in order to update the section to reflect current administrative titles.
Second.
Seconded by Councilman Schiavone. Again, this is really just housekeeping. We've added titles and subtracted titles, and we want to make sure the right ones are listed for the enforcement ability. All right, so I'll call the vote. All in favor?
Aye.
Approved. The next one.
Town Board Resolution 47 of 2022, co-sponsored with Councilman Schiavone. Notice of public hearing to consider amending Town Code, Chapter 164, entitled Fire Prevention, in order to update the section to reflect current administrative title.
All right, same
Same
thing.
section.
All right, seconded by Councilman Schiavone, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye, approved.
That was the last one in the agenda. You have walk-ons.
Okay, thank you, John. Let me pull up the walk-ons here. Okay, so we have 4 walk-on resolutions. The first one, 39276, is capital 1 CPF 1 liability. I'll make a motion to approve. Is there a second, John?
Second.
These are sort of pro forma. People don't get paid unless we do these warrants, so. All right. We second by Councilman Bouvier, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Approved. All right. All right, the next one, am I on to 39271? Is that next? Okay.
Yes.
Okay, so this is terminating a particular employee in the public safety department.
Second.
Seconded by Councilman Martell.
I'd like to abstain.
Okay, so I'll call the vote. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye, with 1 abstention. So the resolution is approved. All right, we're moving on to 39185. This terminates an employee in land management. Do I have a second?
Second.
Seconded by Councilman Bouvier.
I'm abstaining again.
You're abstaining again? Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. So I'll call the vote. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye, and 1 abstention for ayes and one no. No, 1 abstention, I'm sorry.
One abstention.
1 abstention. Okay, Rick, you got the next one?
Sure. Town Board Resolution ID 39287. Notice of public hearing to consider amending Town Code, Chapter 312, Vehicles and Traffic, Article 8, Stopping Prohibited in Designated Locations, to enact no stopping regulations on a portion of Summerfield Lane in Watermill.
Okay, this is for
Second.
no public hearing for January 25th, 1 PM. Let's make sure it has the Zoom language. It does, yes. All right, so seconded by Councilman Schiavone. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Approved. All right, I think that is it. That's all, folks. That's the last resolution. Is there any other business? All right, seeing none, I will make a motion to adjourn.
Second.
Seconded by Councilman Bouvier. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Okay, we are adjourned. Thank you all.
Thank you all. Stay warm.